Why the hell are you playing that crap again? Space 1999? I never cared for that. But I will ask you this. What time is it?
It's Pod Blast time!
That's right, it's Pod Blast time. How you doing? A little bit of a late start tonight. I'm like the boy who cried show. I announced I'd be on at 9 o'clock, and like Madonna doing a concert, I made people wait and wait and wait. One time I saw Madonna here in Atlanta, Georgia. I think it was in 2016. And she made us wait 90 minutes, an hour and a half. No apologies, no nothing. Couldn't believe it. But anyway, hey, it's time for the Nostalgic Pod Blast. I'm Chance Bartels, your host of this weird, wonderful, informative, and hopefully fun time capsule of memories of days gone by as we forge ahead together in the game of life. Not the Milton Bradley board game of life, but life as in real life. Or life as in get a life. As a Saturday Night Live writer once wrote for the great William Shatner, for a Saturday Night Live skit parodying Star Trek conventions in the Holiday Inn Hotel when he hosted back on December 20th, 1986. And that line, get a life, was such a hit with the SNL studio audience that a sitcom titled Get a Life was created for Fox, starring the great Chris Elliott from Late Night with David Letterman fame, the NBC version of Late Night, that is. Welcome to the Nostalgia Show with a bite. Because it bites. I'm Chance, no relation to Chance the Rapper, as you can see. But we've got a good one for you today, as Steve Harvey would say at the beginning of Family Feud. Let me do it like Steve. We got a good one for you today! I'm sorry if that hurt your ears. It hurt mine in my headphones. But I say that with love. He always would announce, we got a good one for you today. Like every episode's great, right? Like everyone's good. But this one I really think is jam-packed and good. And it's not going to be too terribly long. Oh, it's jam-packed. We got our usual nostalgia features, like the fake rant of the week. Got 3 of those for you this time. Music history, great audio clips. Got all that for you and a whole lot more in this live edition of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. But let's start with this, because I know there's a lot of comic book fans that don't want to wait around for me to get to the meat of this edition, which is we're going to talk a little bit about, not spend a whole lot of time on, the history of the Silver Surfer. So let's get in the mood for that. And I'm going to show some comic books. If you're listening, I've got some music clips and some audio to play while I'm showing the viewer comic books from my collection of Silver Age comics from the 1960s and some Bronze Age from the 1970s with the Silver Surfer on the cover. And you can see some of them in the background. I couldn't feature them all on camera. And another reason why it took so long to get started, I had lighting issues. I had all this glare and I had to just get all the lighting just right. Because this is a video show, but really audio is the main emphasis of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. But I would direct any listener on Apple or Fistful of Radio or TuneIn or Spotify to go to our YouTube channel, The Nostalgic, with a C, The Nostalgic Pod Blast. Whether you subscribe or not, I just appreciate you checking it out. It's not about me, it's about our collected memories and the clips. And I have a lot of stuff for you. But let's set the stage now and talk about some history of this character, the Silver Surfer. That's Patty Duke singing a cover of The End of the World. Typically, when you saw the Silver Surfer, it was the end of the world in Marvel comic book lore, in the Marvel Comics universe. And I cannot wait, even though the last few movies in the MCU have been a little iffy, I can't wait for their treatment of the Fantastic Four. And that's where this character started, was in the Fantastic Four in an issue number 48, which hit the street on December 9th, 1965, with a March 1966 cover date. So who is the Silver Surfer? No, it's not a boomer albino hanging five in Hawaii. No, we're talking, of course, about a classic comic book character. And many of you know who he is. The Silver Surfer was created by artist Jack Kirby. And the character, as I said, first appeared in the Fantastic Four issue number 48, which hit the USA comic book spinner racks on Thursday, December 9th, 1965. It's in the background if you're watching on camera. Fantastic Four issue 48. And that began the first of a 3-issue story arc that fans of Marvel Comics called the Galactus Trilogy. I'll explain. But this particular issue recently sold in 9.6 graded condition for $36,000. A 9.0 graded copy, that means it's entombed in a case like this for the viewer. And for the listener, it's hard plastic. Hear that? And there's a grade attached to the book. This one's by CGC, which is the widely accepted #1 and first grading comic book company. I think I'm right on that. It was the first comic book grading company. What you do is you mail a comic book to these guys down in Florida. I think they're in the Orlando, Florida area. And you pay to have the book graded, and then they mail it back in what we call a slab. It's literally entombed, and the good thing is it'll preserve the comic book for 100 years, supposedly. Long after you can pass it down to your son, daughter, niece, nephew, whomever you want, after you're gone, and it will increase in value. So I haven't had these books graded, obviously, that you can see on camera, that I'm going to display later. But that Fantastic Four issue 48 is a really hot book. An 8.0 graded copy sold for almost $5,000 recently. These are actual sales. Sold for $4,900, and a 2.0 graded copy on the low end sold for $1,050. And this data was collected from GoCollect.com. That's Patty. I think I'll play it again. But anyway, back to the history of the Silver Surfer. Well, who is this guy? The Silver Surfer is a Marvel comic book character who's appeared in a number of movie, television, and video game adaptations. He's a humanoid alien with metallic skin from outer space who can travel through space with the aid of his surfboard-like craft. Before he got powers and was transformed into a super being by Galactus, who actually devours planets, this guy Galactus. He's a villain. And this guy Galactus needs what's called a herald, or someone to scout for worlds for him to take over and devour and eat the cosmic energy from. Turn it into cosmic dust, the planet, when he's through. He literally eats it up and shits it out, to be sorry, excuse my language. But before he was transformed into the Silver Surfer, he was a young astronomer named Norrin Radd, bald-headed, white-looking guy, white man, like Caucasian, and that's spelled Norrin, Norrin Radd, R-A-D-D, like radical man, but with 2 D's. And he's from the planet Zenn-La, spelled Z-E-N-N-L-A, like Louisiana or Los Angeles, L.A. Zenn-La was his world. And he saved his home world from that planet devourer Galactus, who's really tall. He's a giant. By agreeing to serve as his herald. In return for some portion of Galactus's power cosmic, he acquired, the Silver Surfer did, a vast power, a new body, and that surfboard-like craft on which he could travel faster than light. Now known as the Silver Surfer, he roamed the cosmos searching for planets for Galactus to consume. When his travels took him to Earth, the Silver Surfer met the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards, Ben Grimm, the Thing, that rock-like monster, Susan Storm, later Susan Richards, the Invisible Woman who could hurl force fields as well as turn invisible. And first they just made her turn invisible, and the people that were reading the book wrote in and said, what, she's just going to hide? You got to give her more abilities than that. So as the Fantastic Four developed, Reed Richards had her concentrate, and she could hurl force fields and protect her teammates with force fields. And then her brother was Johnny Storm. In the past, I've called him Johnny Blaze, which Johnny Blaze was actually the Ghost Rider, Volume 2, on the motorcycle, the Flaming Skull. But Johnny Storm was this version of the Human Torch, the second version of the Human Torch, because in the 40s, he was a robot in the World War II comic books, but I digress. And Reed Richards, the leader of the group and the scientific brain who could stretch. He was like Plastic Man. That's a good one I need to do. I've done comparisons of like Aquaman, which came first, Aquaman or Submariner, and Plastic Man or Reed Richards, which came first. Well, I think you know the answer to that. Plastic Man on the DC side. But anyway, so that's who the Fantastic Four are, and they encountered the Silver Surfer and Galactus in that 3-issue story arc from Fantastic Four issue 48, 49, and 50. We'll look at those covers in just a little bit. So the Fantastic Four helped the Silver Surfer, or Norrin Radd, his former identity, rediscover his nobility of spirit. Betraying Galactus, the Silver Surfer saved Earth as he did his homeworld of Zenn-La. But in exchange for that transgression, he was exiled to Earth by Galactus as punishment. On the big screen in 2007, the Silver Surfer was portrayed by actor Doug Jones, and he was voiced by the great Lawrence Fishburne. In that movie, which was panned by critics and fans alike, titled Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer by 20th Century Fox, now owned by Disney. I think Disney's going to really hit a home run grand slam with this character when they get around to it in Phase 6. It might be Phase 5. I think it's going to be Phase 6, though, of the Marvel Comics movies and streaming shows on Disney+. Now, how this dude came into being in terms of his creation is interesting, and I'm almost done talking about the Silver Surfer here. The Silver Surfer debuted as an unplanned character addition for the Fantastic Four in that issue 48 from December 9th, 1965 with a March 1966 cover date you see in the background here. That comic issue's writer and editor, Stan Lee, and his artist, or penciler, which literally means he would draw the panels in pencil and then an inker would trace over it in ink. And then a colorist would transform the black and white pages to full color. That's the process, in a nutshell, in very basic terms. So what would happen in those days is they'd have a little conference and they'd talk about the issue they were going to produce as an artist and writing team. And they had this down to a real fine oiled machine in those days. And the Marvel Age of Comics took America and the world by storm in the early 1960s. And as I've said before, most of the readers were college students and soldiers in Vietnam. So they were written on an adult level that was almost poetic in many cases, especially the Stan Lee stories. Really well written stuff. It always meant the end of the world when you saw Galactus and the Silver Surfer. That's why I was playing that corny music. But this creation that I talked about was known as the Marvel Method, where Stan Lee and Jack Kirby would discuss story ideas. And Jack Kirby, working from a brief synopsis to draw individual scenes and plot details with Stan Lee, finally adding the dialogue and captions. So, basically Kirby would show Stan a bunch of artwork that he had drawn, and Stan had to come up with a story in many cases. When Kirby turned in his pencil art for the story of Fantastic Four 48, he included that new character that he hadn't discussed with Stan Lee. So really, Jack Kirby is the sole creator of the Silver Surfer in terms of the origin and the first appearance. As Stan Lee recalled in 1995, quote, "There, in the middle of the story, we had so carefully worked out was a nut on some sort of a flying surfboard, unquote. He later expanded on this, recalling, quote, I thought, Jack, this time you've gone too far, unquote. I can't do an impression of Stan Lee, clearly. I'm not even trying to. That would be blasphemous. Kirby explained that the story's agreed upon antagonist, a godlike cosmic predator of planets named Galactus, who eats worlds and devours them, should have some sort of a herald. And that he created the surfboard because, quote, I'm tired of drawing spaceships, unquote. Taken by the noble features of the new character who turned on his master, turned against him to help defend Earth, Lee overcame his initial skepticism and began adding characterization. The Silver Surfer soon became a key part of the unfolding stories. Following the Silver Surfer's debut, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby brought him back as a reoccurring guest in the Fantastic Four issues number 55 through 61, issue number 72, and then again in issues 74 through 77, which were released to the reading public ranging from July 1966 to May 1968. And those are the street dates when they actually were on newsstands, not the cover date, which is always 3 months ahead of actual time. And a lot of article writers don't realize that, and they always claim like the Fantastic Four hit America in November 1961. No, it was August 1961. Details matter. As I've said before, the reason it sold so well is back in August of 1961, kids were still out of school. This is before kids went to school before Labor Day. You know, it used to be you didn't go back to school until Labor Day was over, so early September. Nowadays, heck, here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, kids go back at the end of July. Like by August 1st, in many cases, they're in school. I think that's sad, but they get more days off during the school year, you know, to make up for it, like winter breaks and the like. But anyway, so I think Fantastic Four sold well. This is my theory, Chance Bartel speaking, is because it was pretty much during the dog days of summer, you know, 4th of July is over with. Kids are bored. And usually monster books were the comics on the spinner racks and in the on the newsstands, and the Fantastic Four cover did have a monster created by the Mole Man coming out of the earth, a green, hideous-looking monster, but it also had these interesting superheroes, including one little monster on the cover, the Thing. Ben Grimm, the Thing. Anyway, these issues of the Fantastic Four sold really well, featuring the Silver Surfer. So the following month, on Thursday, May 16th, 1968, after those Fantastic Four issues had already sold very well, Stan Lee launched the solo title, The Silver Surfer, and he fell in love with the character that Jack Kirby created. And he really embellished it and added upon the character in terms of that characterization. Now, in the solo comic book, the artist was John Buscema, who also had a brother who drew for Marvel Comics, Sal Buscema. And there's a great book I'd recommend, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, that features John Buscema's art. It's great, and I learned how to draw myself. I've never been a professional artist, but just on an amateur level, I learned how to draw comic books based on that book, and just by actually reading comics and just admiring them and the artwork in them. I think comic book art is some of the best artwork of all. I really do. So John Buscema was the penciler for the first 17 issues of the Silver Surfer, with Jack Kirby returning for the 18th and final issue. I'm going to show you all these issues in a moment. The first 7 issues were actually double-sized. They were thick, double-sized editions, and then with issue 8, it went to a single-sized edition. For some reason, they didn't sell very well, and I'm going to tell you about issue 4, Thor versus the Silver Surfer. There was a warehouse fire that consumed many copies of that book, so it had very low distribution. So aside from the cover being absolutely classic, and I posted it in the Nostalgic Podblast Facebook group, and it'll be the main photo of this video on YouTube, that's issue 4. It's just a wonderful cover, but also it's very sought out because of its low distribution. But hell, the issue before that, issue 3, introduced a character who's going to be big in the movies, Mephisto, who was like a really evil satanic type character And I'm a good guy. I'm not don't get me wrong out there. I know a lot of people not into comics like, what the hell are you talking about? What you talking about? Satanic. But I'm just describing the character. Anyway. So so that was the first solo edition. They brought him back in 1987, the Silver Surfer, in a solo comic book series, and we'll look at just the first edition of that in a moment. Also, these first 7 issues, the double-sized one, also had another story in the back of the book, a secondary story titled Tales of the Watcher. And with advertising, these double-sized issues were 72 pages long. 25-cent giant copies as opposed to the typical 36-page 12-cent comics at the time and 15-cent copies. Later, the price went up to 15 cents. Thematically, the stories dealt with the Silver Surfer's exile on Earth and the inhumanity of man as observed by this noble yet fallen hero. Though short-lived, the Silver Surfer comic book series became known as one of Stan Lee's most thoughtful and introspective works. Most of the Silver Surfer 1960s solo classic issues were reprinted starting in 1979 and retitled Fantasy Masterpieces. But get this, in these reprints, up to 3 to 4 pages of the original comic book panels were intentionally omitted for cost-cutting measures. So these reissues were edited, which sucks. It's kind of like watching a rerun of a classic TV show and they have to cut out scenes to add more commercials as opposed to the original air dates when there were 51 minutes, 30 seconds of content minus commercials versus now. Hell, Price is Right, I think, is 37 minutes long without commercials. Jeez Louise. And I think the network shows might be down to 41 minutes without commercials. So that's a full 10-minute difference between the 1960s and hell up until really the late 1980s. A TV show would be 48 minutes and 30 seconds long without commercials. So that's quite a difference. And then it was reduced to 46 minutes, 15 seconds, and then 45 minutes, and then 42 minutes, and now I think it's 41 minutes. On network television, on streaming, of course, it doesn't matter. And I'll show you these covers in a moment. As exciting music plays for the benefit of the listener on Fistful of Radio or Apple Podcast or Spotify or TuneIn. But listeners, again, I would encourage you to visit our YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast, to see the beautiful artwork of these covers. And the headline of the video says, The History of the Silver Surfer, etc., etc. So following the 1960s Silver Surfer Volume 1 comic book series cancellation in 1969, the Surfer made sporadic appearances as a guest star or an antagonist in such comic books as Thor, The Defenders, and the Fantastic Four that I talked about. I'm going to show all these in a moment. Some of the Bronze Age 1970s comic book covers as well as the 1960 Silver Age covers that are in my collection. Stan Lee remained partial to the Silver Surfer, even asking other writers not to use him as a general rule. And Kirby collaborated on a 1978 graphic novel starring the character, which was the only story featured in the Marvel Fireside Books series. I know for the non-comic reader, this is pretty dull here, but I'm almost done. Bear with me, and we'll get to some other news and some music. After a 1982 one-shot issue titled The Silver Surfer, one-shot meaning it's just one issue, one and done. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit. It's stacked up back here. I had too much I could show on camera at one time. But John Byrne, my favorite comic book artist next to Jack Kirby. He's Canadian, born in Canada, just a great writer and artist. Anyway, he did this one shot in 1982. I have 2 copies of it. It has a gorgeous wraparound cover. It was a direct edition, meaning it was only distributed to comic book stores and not on comic book spinner racks or newsstands with the UPC symbol. So there was no ad in the back. It had a nice wraparound cover, real cosmic, that John Byrne drew. And it's just gorgeous. And it's not worth much. It should be worth more. I think it's just awesome. And John Byrne did the interior artwork as well. Excuse me. And John Byrne is known for drawing the X-Men comic books in the late 70s and early 80s, and then the Fantastic Four, as well as Marvel Team Up, He did work for Carlton Comics, some Space 1999 comic books for Carlton, another publisher of comic books back in the 70s. And he did. I could go. That's a whole nother topic. I don't want to go too long on this. So as I said, after that 1982 one-shot by John Byrne, which Stan Lee wrote, by the way, Stan Lee came out of retirement only a few times. He created She-Hulk in late 1979, talked about that in a previous pod blast. He came out of a 10-year retirement of writing comics to create and write She-Hulk, the Savage She-Hulk issue #1 with a 1980 cover date, February 1980 cover date, but it actually hit the street in November 1979. I've already told that story. They created the She-Hulk in comic books because they were afraid the television people that were producing at Universal the Incredible Hulk TV show starring Bill Bixby would spin off the Hulk character, which Ken Johnson actually was going to do. Had the show continued long into 1982 and 83, he was going to have a season premiere introducing the She-Hulk. But Marvel Comics struck first. It was all about merchandising rights. Basically, whoever created the character, a female Hulk first, would have the rights to the merchandising, et cetera, et cetera. It was all about money in the Benjamins. But so Stan Lee came out of retirement to create the Savage She-Hulk for that purpose and to protect the intellectual property of a female Hulk character and the money and the merchandising rights. And then he came out of retirement to write the Silver Surfer one-shot that John Byrne drew. And then another time he came out of retirement for the Fantastic Four's 20th anniversary in 1981 in an issue that's so underrated, it's not worth nearly what I think it should be worth. It's issue 236 of the Fantastic Four. It was a triple-sized issue to celebrate the 20th anniversary, really, of the birth of the Marvel Universe in terms of superheroes, because they were doing monster books before that, as I previously said. Not to just be one big rerun in my own show here, talking about old stuff. So, after the 1982 one-shot, the Silver Surfer was granted his own series, again, comic book series, Volume 2, The Silver Surfer, starting in 1987. And it was initially written by Steve Englehart. The series was to be set on Earth, and one issue was completed under the premise before Marvel agreed to let Englehart remove the long-standing restriction regarding the Silver Surfer being imprisoned on Earth. So in this new series, he could travel across the universe, and he encountered Thanos, and Jim Starlin came in. I won't go into detail about who he is. He's just a great writer and artist. Jim Starlin participated in this Volume 2 of the Silver Surfer in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So this first issue actually was shelved, the original first script by Steve Englehart, and it was printed in Marvel Fanfare issue number 51. So the series marked the first Silver Surfer stories not written by Stan Lee, a fact which Lee was openly unhappy about. Stan Lee explained, quote, "After I gave up Spider-Man, then someone else did Spider-Man, and someone else did the Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange and X-Men and all of them. I felt it was kind of nice for me to have been the only writer for the Silver Surfer. So I felt a little bit disappointed when somebody else did it. I would have liked to have been the only person. Had I known they were absolutely going to have the book done, I would have found the time to do it myself. I didn't really have time, but I would have made the time rather than have anybody else do it. This is not at all a criticism of Steve Englehart, or of Marshall Rogers, artist of the series. It's just one book I would have liked to have always done myself," unquote, from the great Stan Lee. Steve Englehart introduced many villains for the Silver Surfer, as well as featured space politics involving the Surfer's homeworld Zen-La, which was caught in the middle of the renewed Kree-Skrull War. I know this is inside baseball, folks, but I know a lot of comic book people know exactly what I'm talking about. However, issues regarding Englehart wanting to use his Avengers character Mantis, who is in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. She's got the antenna. She was introduced in Avengers issue 112, I think. And she was kind of a different character at first. She wasn't so empathetic. I mean, she was more standoffish. Anyway, just a little bit different interpretation of the character of Mantis in the comic books. Anyway, I'm digressing. So Englehart wanted to use his Avengers character Mantis as Silver Surfer's companion, as well as editorial refusing to let him use Thanos or other concepts conceived by Jim Starlin. But that led Englehart to leave the book with issue number 31. And Jim Starlin took over as writer with issue number 34 of the Silver Surfer Volume 2 after several fill-in issues, and incorporated Thanos, Adam Warlock, and Drax the Destroyer into the series. Now, finally, let's look at the comic covers, and we'll turn the page, no pun intended, past the Silver Surfer and talk about some other nostalgic things. And as I get ready for that, I want to remind folks to tune in Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Atlanta Eastern Time at Fistful of Radio to hear the Fall 1975 Marvel Comics Radio syndicated show. That's right, there was a Fantastic Four national radio show. It didn't last long, it lasted only a couple months, but it still exists in the archives, and I'm playing these issues. And Bill Murray voiced the Human Torch, and Stan Lee narrated these radio plays. And they have really funky sound effects and music, and I've jazzed them up a little bit with some additions. But I air 3 episodes on Fistful of Radio from 9 a.m. until 10-ish in the morning, Saturday, and I added Sunday because the numbers were good of people tuning in. So it's not a cartoon show. This is literally based on the comic books written on an adult level. So it's not like a corny, ridiculous Fantastic Four cartoon where they had was it Robbie the Robot? Herbie the Robot. I know that. It was Herbie the Robot. Getting confused with Rob Kinoshita's created Robbie the Robot for Forbidden Planet. Rob Kinoshita was the designer of Robbie the Robot and the Robot in Lost in Space. Just a brilliant man. And he worked on Barnaby Jones a couple seasons as the art director. I'm totally digressing, but I want to mention in the Barnaby Jones episode, we'll get to it in another pod blast. You actually can see he at a discotheque. There's a disco scene, and he created in the art design. I see his handiwork in the Robot in Lost in Space in the bubble. There are these things that are spinning, and he recreated that like on the background of a set at a disco in a 1978 episode of Barnaby Jones. And I was like, oh my God, that's the interior. That's like the spinning gizmos in the robot's head. Anyway, how silly is that? But I thought it was kind of cool. But I'm going to play some funky music as we look at these comic books, and let me quickly explain what this is. This guy, Lalo Schifrin, he had scored in 1966 the theme to Mission Impossible, but no, that's not what I'm going to play. I'm going to play a longer version of this theme he did for Medical Center that was actually released as a 45 record. And Medical Center was a long-running show starring Chad Everett. It's a medical drama. You know, it's like ER. It was the pre-ER ER. Or Chicago Hope, pre-Chicago Hope, whatever medical drama you might have liked. What was the other one? Saint Elsewhere. That's another good one. Medical dramas. But Medical Center also had James Daly in the cast, Tyne Daly's father. Anyway, season 1 of that show had a different theme. It wasn't very good. So Lalo Schifrin created this wild, upbeat theme, which started in season 2 of Medical Center. Technically, to be specific, on September 16th, 1970. But as I play this for the viewer, I think the listener will dig this music. I'm going to play the 45 record version and then the Lalo Schifrin album version of this to give me time to show some of these comic books for the camera. But let's see which one I'm going to start with now. I want to get the longest version possible. Yes, now here is the Medical Center theme by Lalo Schifrin from his record album. Now here comes the record album version as I continue to show some comic books. Listen to the crackle of the vinyl. I got most of them in on camera. Sorry to be a little repetitive there. I had to play that a couple of times to show most of the comic books that I wanted to. But let's move on to other topics of discussion here in terms of nostalgia. And let's see where I'm at here. Okay. Oh yeah, this was kind of interesting. Brendan Fraser. We're on as this might date the show, but it's Oscars 2023. A lot of people probably don't watch award shows, but I'm rooting for Brendan Fraser, and he's won a lot of somewhat minor awards, not minor, but leading up to the Oscars, he's won awards for a great performance for what did he win? He won a he won a Golden Globe Award and a SAG Award, the Screen Actors Guild Award. So this is probably in the rearview mirror by the time you hear this or watch this, but I'm rooting for him to win. And he was on the Stern Show on XM not too long ago, talking about auditioning for the role of Superman over 20 years ago, back in 2003. And this ties into the Fantastic Four. He mentioned that Paul Walker, star of the Fast and the Furious franchise, auditioned for Superman as well to portray the Man of Steel. You know, I couldn't buy Paul Walker as Superman, but I do think he'd make a great Human Torch, though. Okay, that was mean. But seriously, folks, you know who he would have? I always said this. You know how they're making all these big screen remakes of television shows? And I've talked about QM, Quinn Martin production shows, and I really think they should have done a movie based on The Invaders, about an alien invasion, and architect David Vincent. Before there was architect Mike Brady and the Brady Bunch, there was architect David Vincent by 2 years on television on ABC. And I think that they had similar features. And if they ever did a movie, which they never did, so it wasn't meant to be, I thought that would have been perfect casting. And it probably would have done well because he had a built-in fan base. And I mean, no disrespect with my bad taste joke to his dying in that fiery plane car crash. It was a terrible thing. But I do want to play another audio clip of, I've played this before in the Halloween editions of the Nostalgic Pod Blast, but there was an attempted spinoff of The Outer Limits titled The Unknown. And The Outer Limits was, of course, an anthology science fiction show. Anthology meaning different actors each week, not an ongoing cast. And it was like The Twilight Zone, but it was an hour long, even though Twilight Zone Season 4 was an hour long. But primarily, 4 of the 5 seasons of the original Twilight Zone were in half-hour format. Outer Limits was 1 hour format, debuted in September 1963 on ABC. Monsters were in the early 60s. That's why you had the Munsters and the Addams Family parodies a year later. But Outer Limits didn't last long. 48 episodes aired, including 1 two-parter in season 2 of that program, and then it was canceled mid-season in the middle of the 1964-1965 season, with the last episode titled The Probe, airing in January 1965. But before that happened, when it was still hot in the ratings, they tried a spin-off show. And the first installment had actor David McCallum, who a few months after that, no big deal to his acting career. He's still acting on NCIS, by the way, but he picked up the man from Uncle, Ilya Kuryakin, the Russian agent, the good agent, who worked for UNCLE. Remember what that stood for? United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. And but anyway, he was in this thing, The Unknown, and he played a dude who could control time and bring people back from the dead. It was pretty freaking cool. Here's how the opening sounded like when it didn't get picked up by ABC, because they went with Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea instead of The Unknown. They picked that up from Irwin Allen for the 64-65 television season. The Unknown aired as the last episode of season 1 of The Outer Limits. It was re-edited. And they edited out this really cool opening. Now, how does this tie to The Invaders? Well, you'll notice The Invaders used some elements in this narration and the music. The same guy who scored this theme for The Unknown scored the first season of The Outer Limits, and he scored for Quinn Martin Productions' 12 O'Clock High, the television show set in World War II based on the movie of the same name, Dominique Frontiere. And I want to play a little bit of the whole opening and the end credits to The Unknown so I can show things for the camera and take a little break. Let's listen.
There is a fear that is unlike all other fears. It has a special clammy chill, a deadly gift for inspiring deeper, darker dread. It is the fear of unopened doors, of locked rooms, of bends in lonely roads. It is the fear of the phone call in the dead of the night, of the stranger you recognize, perhaps from a nightmare. It is the fear of the unexpected, the unfamiliar. fear of the unknown. That await you in the depths of the unknown. And no switch of time, no twist of plan can cancel your meeting with it. For some night, in some blind panic, you will venture into the world of dark reality. And on that night, you will keep your rendezvous with the unknown.
Now compare that with the opening to The Invaders just 2 seasons later. This was in the middle of the 1966-1967 season. The Invaders debuted specifically on January 10th, 1967 on ABC TV. And you'll hear similar dialogue, like talking about lonely country roads and lonely roads. And the announcer for The Invaders was William Woodson, who you may remember a few seasons later as the announcer of The Odd Couple TV show. Can they live together without driving each other crazy? William Woodson, and he also is a narrator for The Invaders. Let's listen. You'll hear that music, though. More importantly, the Dominique Frontier scored music you just heard. Listen to how they recycled it for The Invaders.
Next, The Invaders in color. The Invaders. A Quinn Martin production. Starring Roy Thinnis as architect David Vincent.
The Invaders. Alien beings from a dying planet. Their destination, the Earth. Their purpose, to make it their world. David Vincent has seen them. For him, it began one lost night on a lonely country road looking for a shortcut that he never found. It began with a closed, deserted diner and a man too long without sleep to continue his journey. It began with the landing of a craft from another galaxy.
A Ford Galaxy is what he was driving.
Now, David Vincent knows that the invaders are here, that they have taken human form. Somehow he must convince a disbelieving world that the nightmare has already begun.
The guest stars in tonight's story: Jack Lord, Alfred Ryder, and special guest star Diana Hyland. Tonight's episode, Vicar.
Here's the end credits. I was so glad when that hit DVD back in 2008. The Aaron Spelling Company bought the rights to the QM shows or the Invaders, and they released them on DVD, and they did a really good job. I think it started in 2007 and then 2008. They released season 1 first and season 2. Anyway, there's only 43 episodes of the Invaders. Should have lasted longer. We've talked about, won't go ad nauseum again, about why it didn't catch on. It just had some bad scheduling from the network in a nutshell. But, hey, I want to say hi to Basil Chesterman. He says, love the audio. I appreciate that. He's out there watching. Kim Ponder, Jason Wood, Shane B, WQEE in Noonan, Bucky Smith, who is a talent at The Fish in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think he's going to be on Sunday. And Paula Carter. I appreciate y'all checking it out. Thank you very much. Let me get to some more nostalgic goodness. And we're going to get to birthdays in a moment. This won't be a terribly long show. I basically did this for the viewer. I probably should have gone live on YouTube instead of the Facebook group, the Nostalgic Pod Blast, because I don't think there's a whole lot of comic book lovers in the Facebook group as opposed to the YouTube universe. So should have done that. But anyway, I want to talk about someone. Now, I did a little mean, not really mean-spirited, but a meanish joke there about Paul Walker, how we would have made a great Human Torch. Let's talk about someone who was never mean. Now, I would have done this in the birthday segment, but I want to single this out because I met this gentleman, talking about James Doohan, otherwise known as Scotty. There be whales here, in the Star Trek original television series and the series of movies and a 1973 animated show. He had a birthday recently, a heavenly birthday, on March 3rd, and he was a war hero. I think this is worthy of discussion and highlighting for historical purposes. That's what this show is. Hopefully educational, factual, and I want to be a time capsule for younger generations, for after I'm gone, for my niece, nephew, for my family, for new friends, old friends. That's what this is about. So happy heavenly birthday to James Doohan, who, as I said, was a World War II hero who most remember as Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott in Star Trek. James Doohan was born on Wednesday, March 3rd, 1920, in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada, in the Great White North. Prior to his acting career, James enlisted with the Royal Canadian Artillery 14th Midland Field Battery of the 2nd Canadian Infantry Division in 1939. By 1940, he advanced to lieutenant in rank and was sent to train in Britain prior to Operation Overlord. He first saw combat landing in the second wave in a Resi party at Juno Beach on D-Day. I'm sorry for screwing that up. It's very important. RECCE, party at Juno Beach on D-Day. After shooting 2 snipers, James Doohan led his men to higher ground through a field of anti-tank mines where they took defensive positions for the night, crossing between command posts at 2330 hours, which is 11:30 p.m. That night, James Doohan was hit by 6 rounds fired from a Bren gun by a nervous Canadian sentry. It was friendly fire. 4 bullets went into James Doohan's leg, 1 in the chest, and 1 through his right middle finger. That's right, he was missing a finger which he concealed in his acting career. But get this, the bullet to his chest was stopped by a steel cigarette case given to him by his brother. Because of the injury to his hand, his right middle finger had to be amputated, something he would conceal, like I said, on screen during most of his career as an actor. After the war ended, James Doohan moved to London, not in England, but in London, Ontario, in Canada, for further technical education. After hearing a radio drama and believing he could do better, he recorded his voice at the local radio station and learned about a drama school in Toronto, Canada. There, he won a 2-year scholarship to the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City, where his classmates included Leslie Nielsen, who was a dramatic actor before he was a comedic one, starting in, remember the great, oh God, I don't want to digress too much, but, oh man, we loved the parodies. You could go, he did the Fugitive parody, you know the career of Leslie Nielsen. I'm trying to think of Police Squad, that's it, Police Squad, and of course the Airplane movie. Ever seen a grown man naked? His delivery was awesome. But anyway, the great James Doohan, that's who we're talking about here, his classmates were the Leslie Nielsen and Tony Randall from The Odd Couple, we talked about earlier, with the narration by William Woodson, the beginning of each and every episode of that show, with his castmate, Jack Klugman, and also Richard Boone, like Daniel Boone. Richard Boone was also one of James Doohan's Neighborhood Playhouse, New York City fellow students. James Doohan developed a talent for performing various foreign accents as a child, and while auditioning for the role of Star Trek's chief engineer of the USS Enterprise spaceship, James Doohan tried several different dialects and accents. Star Trek creator and producer Gene Roddenberry asked which accent James Doohan preferred, and James said, "If you want an engineer, in my experience, the best engineers are Scotsmen." So James Doohan chose the name Montgomery Scott after his grandfather. After the cancellation of the original Star Trek series by NBC in 1969, James Doohan reprised his role in a short-lived Saturday morning Star Trek animated series in 1973, along with his other castmates of the original show. But on a larger scale, Scotty returned on the big screen in a series of very successful Paramount Motion Pictures between the years 1979 and 1994, as well as in one guest spot in Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1992, a very memorable appearance he made in that show, which began in 1987, incidentally. Star Trek: The Next Generation did. "Beam me up, Scotty," was a catchphrase associated with the character of Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott, yet in the original NBC classic Star Trek series, that line was never actually said. It was never uttered, the line, "Beam me up, Scotty." There were variations of it, like "two to beam up" or "beam us up fast," but you never heard the line, "Beam me up, Scotty," and those were like bumper stickers, there was merchandising. Really, Star Trek took off in 1972 is when the first Star Trek convention was held in New York City, one of the first big ones. Because of syndication, the network moved it to Friday night from Thursday night, screwed with the ratings, screwed with bad scheduling. That's what networks did in those days. That's why streaming shows are so great. Like on Netflix and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus, Prime, you know the list, Peacock. You can be your own programming director. Back then, you had a TV guide, you didn't have a VCR, Betamax, you didn't have a DVR or a TiVo. You had to just watch. You had to choose what to watch. You had one choice of 3 programs to watch, and that was it in those days when Star Trek was originally on the air. And the networks, with many shows like The Time Tunnel, only lasted 30 episodes, and that was a good show. Not as good as Star Trek, in terms of the writing and the believability of it and the acting. But it wasn't a bad show. It was one of Irwin Allen's better shows. It never went campy or corny. In fact, and I saw future Archie Bunker, Carol O'Connor. I've seen this before, but he was on last week's MeTV weekly episode of The Time Tunnel. And he goes into the tunnel and he's like, you just had to see it. This is where I need Tom Williams, Basil Chesterman, the Emmy Award Tom Williams, to show the video of this clip. I keep this show simple visually. The audio may be good, but the video is just a one camera primitive operation by design, really. It would be a simple thing for me to get the software, and maybe I'd get more views that way. And I probably should do that, but I want to make it look like it's shot out of an old school VHS camcorder because I want to keep the nostalgic vibe going. I swear, that's what I want to do. But that limits me. If I could play the clip, I would. It's an awesome shot, a funny shot, seeing Archie Bunker with this psychedelic swirling background as he's traveling back to the 1800s when he goes into the tunnel. Supposedly in the year 1968. That's when the show was set, which at that time was 2 years into the future because the show aired in the 1966-67 season. But we're getting back to Chief Engineer Scott. I want to play a little audio from a record album, which was released in 1976, with Gene Roddenberry and William Shatner and the rest of the cast members, including James Doohan, titled Inside Star Trek. It was a behind-the-scenes making-of album. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I wanted to play as I show. I need to dig for his photo of James and I. I met him a couple of times, the great James Doohan. The first was on Saturday, March 27th, 1987 in Columbus, Georgia at the Magnum Opus Convention, or Magnum Opus Con. A lot of people get that confused with Dragon Con. It actually morphed into Dragon Con, believe it or not, but he was there, and so was DeForest Kelley, who played Dr. Bones McCoy. Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy. Bones, of course, is a nickname. And this was sad. Patrick Houghton was there, one of the original Doctor Who's, and he died of a heart attack at that convention. It was really, really sad, and it certainly put a damper on the proceedings. Everybody knew about it, but we tried to have fun. The stars, the fans, we tried to have a good time. This, of course, long before the internet. Hell, this was 36 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long ago. So I was 16. I was 16 at the time. And I'll show you a picture of and it's on the Nostalgic Pod Blast Facebook group, but page in the Facebook group. I posted it. Just if you search James Doohan, it'll pop right up. But it's a great shot. Went with my buddy Jeff Logan. My parents drove us there. I didn't have a car yet. And Jeanette Goldstein was also in attendance. She was Vasquez in Aliens, the movie, and she's been in almost every James Cameron movie. She was in Titanic in a small speaking part. Oh, they'll put what did she say in Titanic? She was the one talking to the little girl. When will they let us off the boat, Mommy? And she goes, they'll let the other people go first, and then they'll be starting with us. And she did a dialect herself. I don't know if it was Irish. I think it was Irish dialect. But and she was in a lot of James Cameron movies. Anyway, she was there, but I'll never forget meeting James Doohan and how nice he was. George Takei was there too. Sulu, I got a picture with him. Now, DeForest Kelley was suffering from arthritis, so he didn't sign anything at that particular convention, but he did speak, and I have pictures with him as well. And he was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area. That's where the Nostalgic Pod Blast is based out of, Atlanta, Georgia. It was born here in Atlanta, Georgia, and it will remain here in Atlanta, Georgia, as long as I can help it. But yeah, I'm going to play a little bit of Inside Star Trek. It's a long setup, and then I have a funny blooper. I mean, it's just 3 seconds, and it's not visual. But supposedly William Shatner and his fellow Canadian actor James Doohan, there was some friction on the set, and you can hear that in one of these bloopers I'll play. But as I dig for this photo of James Doohan and I'm going to play this. And this is one of the most tacky versions of the Star Trek theme, I think. It's just over the top with the bongos on this record album from 1976. And it's one of the ones, like in season 1, you didn't have those background singers like you had in season 2 and season 3. And it actually harkens back to the Cage pilot, the original pilot, The Cage. The unedited version had these singers, going, ooh, ooh, ooh. and they're over the top in this, but I think you get a kick out of this audio. So I'm going to play that as I dig for these photos. And I got another funny story of meeting James Doohan in 1996, the 30th anniversary, and he took a dig at William Shatner. It was so funny. He made fun of Shatner's toupee. I'll talk about it in a second, but let me play this. Yes, and you'll hear the great Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek, introducing, this is the record album. I have this record in my collection, but just check this out and then listen to the theme. I won't go too long with this, I promise you, no more than 4 minutes or so I can take a break, get some more coffee, and dig for that photograph.
Star Trek. How did it happen? When did it start? What are the people, the things that we couldn't say on television? What are the stories which haven't been told? These are the voices of Star Trek, the way we think, some of what we think about, some of what we talk about in private. This is Gene Roddenberry, and I'll be bringing you William Shatner, DeForest Kelley, or will it be Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy? You'll have to decide where fiction leaves off and reality begins. You may find that they're both part of the other. You'll also hear from a science fiction great, Isaac Asimov, also from Spock's Vulcan father, Ambassador Serac, plus more. Welcome to Inside Star Trek.
now, ladies and gentlemen, the creator of Star Trek, the great bird of the galaxy, Gene Roddenberry.
Thank you. And you. This is Gene Roddenberry.
And Bill Shatner.
In a conversation I guess we've never had before, Bill. There are some questions I've been wanting to ask you for about 10 years. One of them is, how much of Bill Shatner is Captain Kirk?
Well, Gene, the act of putting on a television show, a television series, is such a back-breaking, all-encompassing task. The hours we put in are so enormous that to be able to make up a character and sustain that for the years that we did it would be impossible, I think, for anyone, but certainly impossible for me. So what essentially comes out is William Shatner himself, as himself, saying the lines that were written for me to say in a situation that I was placed in. I think that the people you see on television playing leads in television series, that's what they're like. When people ask, what is so-and-so really like, the lead on a television show, what you're seeing is what you're getting.
How did Captain Kirk, the character, the strong, the usually wise commander of the vessel, how much did that influence you and your personality?
I don't think that I carried home any of the characteristics of Captain Kirk, other than, as I've just said, those characteristics were me. But the wisdom and the sagacity and the courage that Captain Kirk evidenced in the play of the week was written as fiction. And I often wish that I could be able to do that in my own personal life, but fallible me is fallible me.
Let me ask you a tough one that I've certainly got a lot of questions on. And fans talk about rumors of trouble on stage, and very often the subject of you and Leonard Nimoy come up, that they wouldn't speak to each other, that there were great problems on stage. How would you address yourself to that?
Well,
we can cut this out of the recording if you like.
No. I really love Leonard. I really care for him a great deal. He's a very
I didn't
fine
care for
human
that.
being. He stands behind what he says with his total character, and when he says something, he really means it. I mean, you can take him at his word. He is slyly humorous and very affectionate in his own way that is remarkable. And to address myself to the elements of friction on the stage, I would put it in the way that two children in the same family might squabble over something. Loving each other, but squabbling. I mean, any member of a family would know what I mean, and that means all of us. If you can say, no, I don't think that's right, in that querulous tone, and be angry at the moment, and then forget it the following moment because you care for that person. The questions that I get apropos of the show frequently is, what were the various elements in the difference in the show between the first, second, and third seasons, and especially the third season, when it's indicated that you pulled out and left the show more or less to run on its own. The question I get is why?
I had been told by the network that we would get a 7:30 time slot early in the week, and I said on that basis I'll come back and become line producer by the time we'd lost Gene Coon, who we all admired, and I would line produce the show. Then they put us last moment into Friday night at 10, and I told them that, using the only leverage I had, that if they did that, I would not produce a show as promised. And I couldn't get them to back down, and I felt at the time I had to stick by my statement, since I would have to bargain with them again at other times. I think there was a little rationalization in that on my part, and I've never said this before from a platform or any other way. I think also what was affecting me at that time was enormous fatigue. I think maybe I was looking for an excuse to get out from under the fight that I had not just been having for 2 years, but for 4.
Right.
As you recall, we'd made first pilot, turned down a second pilot, and then 2 years of production. So I think there was some rationalization there. I think the fatigue had just caught up.
If you had it to do over, what would you do, and also how would you fight that element of fatigue?
I think I would come back and produce it the third year.
There you go.
myself
Now
if
let
I
me
had
see if I can find
on for mating drive.
James
And
Doohan.
wondered if the fight. Executives. One of them said, and I quote exactly, "Who ever heard of a character in drama being interested in the reason for his existence?" In his case, I probably could have said, "What about Pinocchio?"
Let me back that
But
up.
at any rate, the only way that Questor could locate his creator was through a very, very lovely woman who refused to talk. Fortunately, the android had been programmed in literature, which included the works of Maupassant, from which he had learned that sometimes the human female will open her mind to a man to whom she has opened other channels of communications.
Not really portraying.
There's D.
In
Kelly.
other cults, for
That was Gene Roddenberry.
You were doing it intelligently and
always have a list of things that you... Strong person hidden inside of me.
Bad preparation on my part. I apologize.
I remember it was...
I was trying to find
Like...
that.
Back in... he was programmed for excellence in many areas.
Well, I'll play that clip another time. I got to move along, but I did show for the camera. I found the photograph. Anyone that was watching, and I just loved meeting James Doohan. He was just a genuine person. Now, when I saw him later in 1996, 9 years later, this was funny. He was there along with the rest of the surviving cast members of the original Star Trek in Huntsville, Alabama for the 30th anniversary reunion of the cast. And there was a big event. This was on Saturday, September 7th, 1996. And the entire event concluded, by the way, it was a 2-day event on Sunday, September 8th, 1996, for the 30th anniversary of the debut of Star Trek on NBC. And they had a big event Saturday night, September 7th, 96, at the Civic Center in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where the Space Center is. For those that don't know, you should visit it. It's fantastic. And so all of the cast members were going to go on stage. And so one by one, the cast members were announced and they went on stage, including James Doohan. Well, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy were announced, but they didn't take to the stage. And so the crowd started actually getting restless, like at a concert, like I told you how Madonna kept us waiting 90 minutes here in Atlanta, Georgia in 2016. And people started chanting, "We want Kirk. We want Spock." And people started throwing stuff on the stage, not dangerous objects, but someone threw a tribble. For those that don't know, it looks like a little gerbil. It was a stuffed animal, basically, of a tribble from the Star Trek show. And James Doohan picks up that tribble, and it's like a big mass of fur, and he goes, "Oh, look, it's Captain Kirk's toupee." And the crowd went crazy. I thought that was hilarious. He goes, "It's Captain Kirk's toupee." I already ruined that punchline earlier. I gave it away prematurely. But I thought that was so funny, and the crowd just loved it. And I actually quit a job to attend that. I was working a job, and my boss, I said, "Look, I was supposed to work that Saturday." And I said, "No, I got to attend this thing." And they said, "You attend that?" And I'd been there for years. Said, "Don't even bother coming back." I said, "Fine, see ya." And so I left, and I went to Alabama to attend that show. And I quit that job. Sure did. By the way, for those 2 days in September 1996, and I have one of my programs I'll show you for the camera in just a second. The mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, and Huntsville is known as Rocket City. Well, for those 2 days, it was the proclamation by the mayor of Huntsville, Alabama, Steve Hettinger. He called it Star Trek City, right? Fuck, I'm messing that up. Excuse my language. Let me see. What was it he called it? Yeah. Okay. Take 2. For those 2 days, September 1996 in Huntsville, Alabama, Huntsville, the Rocket City, was renamed Star Trek. Star Trek City. I interjected city. It was Star Trek City, but this article just says Star Trek. It wasn't renamed Star Trek. It was Star Trek City. Star Trek City, Alabama, by Mayor Steve Hettinger, as members of the original cast of Star Trek attended the 30th anniversary special convention. Here's that quick blooper I told you about. And Shatner has flubbed his lines. He forgot a whole section of dialogue from a season 2 episode titled The Changeling. And in a nice way, and I have this on film, by the way, this reel. Listen to James Doohan, and the audio's a little bit bad here. It's on YouTube. Star Trek bloopers best quality is what the video is titled. Bullcrap. This guy used a camcorder and recorded a projector going. You hear it clicking in the background, so it's not very good quality, but it's audible enough. Listen to William Shatner screwing up his lines and James Doohan interjecting.
Now hold your position. We're locked onto your coordinates. We are prepared to beam you aboard.
Captain, you forgot all about the environment and all that stuff. Do you want to really do that?
There you go. Do you really want to do that? There's other examples, too, where you could see like a glimpse of the friction. But he wasn't being mean, and Shatner did mess up his lines there. So anyway, let's move along. So I just want to say happy birthday in heaven to James Doohan and rest in peace. And I loved my favorite line of his is from Star Trek 4. There be whales here. That's my favorite line in that lighthearted movie directed by Leonard Nimoy. And my gosh, only 2 remain of the original cast: George Takei Sulu and Walter Koenig. And incidentally, that's the character name of Martin Landau's character in Space 1999, Koenig. It's pronounced Koenig, though, Walter Koenig, but Koenig is how they say it on the show, Space 1999, but it's spelled the same way. Okay, let's see. Yeah, what do we want to do now? We talked last time about the new Indiana Jones movie, and I joked, do we really need a Geritol swigging Indiana Jones? We'll see. We'll see. But I like that it's set in the 1960s, so I'm repeating myself. I mentioned that last week. I'm going to have an open mind. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But now we've got to talk about some sad news. Just want to remember someone who really was important in Hollywood lore who passed away. Let me see if I can find this for you real quick. Well, if I can't, then I'll play something else for you. Yeah. I usually play, I guess it's getting a little old because I would play the Joe Harnell end credits piano theme, the Lonely Man theme to the Incredible Hulk. I guess I'll listen into the background to a little bit more Patty, End of the World, her cover. But this is a big loss. Richard Browning, the Gill Man in Creature from the Black Lagoon, died at the age of 93, and he was the last of the classic Universal horror monster performers. He was a stuntman playing the title character in the Creature from the Black Lagoon movies, and he did some dazzling underwater sequences in the 1954 classic Creature from the Black Lagoon. Well, he passed away, sadly, back on Monday, February 27th, 2023, at the age of 93, as I said. And he was the last surviving actor to have portrayed a Universal horror monster, a role he took on in the film's 2 sequels as well. Now, the creature on land was played by 3 actors named Ben Chapman, Tom Hennessy, and Don Megawan. Rico Browning was born on February 16, 1930 in Florida. And Browning had performed stunt diving in Jules Verne's film adaptation of his book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 1954. Later, get this, Browning co-created the film Flipper in 1963, and it was adapted, of course, as a television show. My dad loved that show, Flipper. They call him Flipper. And Browning went on to direct underwater sequences in such films as James Bond's Thunderball, Caddyshack in 1980, and Never Say Never Again in 1983. That's the one. 1983 was the year there were 2 James Bond films. The Broccoli people, Albert Broccoli, released Octopussy with Roger Moore, and then Warner Brothers released Never Say Never Again, where Sean Connery returned, but they couldn't use the music. They couldn't use the Monty Norman theme in Never Say Never Again, but Never Say Never Again was a remake of Thunderball. So that's funny. He worked on Thunderball and the remake of Thunderball, directing underwater sequences. That's pretty cool. Obviously, it was because they brought him back because he did such a good job the first time around in 1965. Actually filmed in 1964, Thunderball was. So Browning was preceded in death by his wife in the year 2020. And he's survived by his 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and 11 great-grandchildren. Another loss, we lost Wayne Shorter, legendary saxophonist and performer, African-American. Now, I have another loss, one of the longest, James Tim Walker has been on the Podblast a couple times. He is an animator. He's worked with Disney and many other studios like Hanna-Barbera. He probably knew this gentleman. Let me get this for you now. But this gentleman worked at Disney longer than anybody else as an animator. Let me just pull this up right fast quick. He was 87 years of age. I didn't have this prepared. We're going to get to birthdays in a moment as I start to wrap the show. And some music history. Got some great songs I'm going to play in a moment. And our nostalgic toy of the week is coming up. By the way, I found an autographed picture of a videotape I had signed by Barry Morse, who played Lieutenant Gerard in The Fugitive, the Quinn Martin show. I met him in Manhattan, Labor Day weekend in the year 2000. In the year 2000, and I had him sign a videotape that was still in plastic. And it's starting to rub away, but no worries. He signed about 20 other items for me that are not blemished in any way. But it's just a shame that I didn't have the sense to have him to remove the plastic and have him sign the videotape itself. It was a videotape of 2 episodes of The Fugitive, volume 20 to be specific. But here we go. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Bernie Mattinson, animator and Disney's longest-serving employee, died at the age of 87. He had a 70-year run with the Walt Disney Company, including work on Lady and the Tramp, The Jungle Book, The Lion King, Strange World, and The Great Mouse Detective. This article is from back on February 27th, 2023. He was an animator, director, producer, and story artist during that 70-year career. Longest-serving, quote-unquote, cast member in the history of the Walt Disney Company. Wow. He had a short illness that took his life at a Canoga Park assisted living facility in Los Angeles, California, Walt Disney Studios announced. He was due to receive his 70th Anniversary Service Award, the studio's first ever, on June 4th, 2023. Matson was working full-time at Walt Disney Animation Studios as a story consultant and mentor at the time of his death, so he was working up until the end. That's a big loss. Thank you for your service, sir.
No, I can't understand how life goes on the way it does.
So I'm going to raise a glass, and I hope you do too, to those fallen, famous folks that really made a difference. As we turn the page and go to some music history, some more upbeat stuff, but a little bittersweet, because this artist passed away in 2022. Talking about ONJ, Olivia Newton-John. But there was an anniversary of her first major award in the United States of America, which caused a pseudo-controversy. And I have a clip of that song, a live performance from 1973 I want to play. So, over 49 years ago, on Saturday, March 2nd, 1974, the Australian lovely performer Olivia Newton-John won the Grammy Award for Best Female Vocal Country Performance for the song, Let Me Be There. Country veterans were reportedly miffed at her achievement. Later, Olivia won the CMA Award for Female Vocalist of the Year. Now, I want to play a live performance that Olivia performed back in 1973, as I said, of Let Me Be There.
Surely you know
Let's listen to it from the top.
Wherever you
How
go.
about- Here we go.
Wherever you go, wherever you may wander your life, surely you know I'll always want to be there, holding your hand and standing by to catch you when you fall, seeing you through in everything you do. Let me be there in your morning. Let me be there in your night. Let me change whatever's wrong and make it right. Let me take you through that wonderland that only two can share. All I ask you is let me be there. Watching you grow and going through the changes in your life. That's how I know I'll always want to be there. Whenever you feel you need a friend to lean on, here I am. Whenever you call, you know I'll be there. Let me be there in your morning. Let me be there in your night. Let me change whatever's wrong and make it right. Let me take you through that wonderland that only two can share. All I ask you is let me be there. Let me be there in your morning. Let me be there in your night. Let me change whatever's wrong and make it right. Let me take you through that wonderland that only two can share. All I ask you is let me be there. All I ask you is let me be there.
Yeah. The great Olivia Newton-John. Oh, jeez. This is so scary. I'm afraid my collectibles are going to fall in the background and get ruined. But let's talk now about a big, big music anniversary. I posted about it in the Nostalgic Pod Blast Facebook group. I don't know if I did a tweet or an Instagram about it, but I know I did in the Facebook group. 50 years ago, now it's over 50 years ago, on Thursday, March 1st, 1973, the classic Pink Floyd album Dark Side of the Moon was released. Let me do this right. Dark Side of the Moon was released, which was their 8th record. To this day, over 45 million copies, that's 45 million copies of the album Dark Side of the Moon have been sold. It's the 3rd best-selling record of all time, and it's the number 1 selling record in all of the 1970s decade, topping Elton John, Queen, all this great 1970s music. Led Zeppelin got beaten by Pink Floyd in that album. And I'm going to play a little bit of a live performance from Wembley, live at the Wembley Empire Pool, 1974. Just a little bit, so I can take a little break. I just pulled up for you here, and I'm going to rearrange my stuff in the background because it looks like this stuff's fixing to fall. And then I will cuss. I usually do that when I get pissed off, and I don't want to do that. Oh, yeah, there's this. I got something good coming up after this, too. Okay, so here is a little bit of Dark Side of the Moon live performance. Happy 50th birthday, Dark Side of the Moon.
Been mad for fucking years, absolutely years. I've been over the edge for years. Working with Bunsen, crazy. I've been mad for fucking years, absolutely years. I've been over the edge for young. Working with Bunsen, crazy. I've been mad for fucking years, absolutely years. I've been over the edge for young. Working with Bunsen.
I've always been mad. I know I've been mad, like the most of the time. Very hard to explain why you are mad, even if you're not mad.
Dark Side of the Moon, happy 50th birthday. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Wow, the number one selling album of the 70s. Incredible. And third best selling of all time. Now, in terms of music history, what bands did you like that either had one or two albums that were strong records, but for whatever reason, the band faded away? Talking specifically in terms of the 1980s. Well, for me, I have two I'm going to mention. If you're watching in the Nostalgic Pod Blast YouTube channel or Facebook group, The Nostalgic Pod Blast, you can see on camera one of the bands I'm going to feature. But two come to mind immediately. I'll just go ahead and mention them. Asia is one, and also The Power Station. So let's talk about The Power Station today, and I have a couple clips. Actually, I'm going to pull a clip right now as I talk about the history of this band. It was a conglomerate band, and after Duran Duran's success, and they had an album, Seven and the Ragged Tiger, Simon Le Bon, the band basically didn't really break up, but they went their separate ways temporarily to do other projects. And here is a performance from 1985. It's kind of a really cool story about what happened with them. Really, Robert Palmer, the lead singer, is the reason the band broke up. But I'll get to that in a moment. So The Power Station was a British-American 1980s rock and pop music supergroup, originally formed in New York City and in London back in 1984. It was made up of singer Robert Palmer, former Chic drummer Tony Thompson, and Duran Duran members John Taylor, who played the bass, and Andy Taylor, who played the lead guitar. Bernard Edwards, also of Chic, C-H-I-C, if you can understand my enunciation, Chic, was involved on the studio side as recording producer, and for a short time also functioned as the Power Station's manager. I saw them at the Omni here in Atlanta, Georgia in 1985 in concert. It was a great, great show. I have pictures of it. Edwards also replaced John Taylor on bass for the recording of the band's second album. The band was formed in New York City late in 1984 during a break in Duran Duran's schedule that wound up becoming a lengthy hiatus. The Power Station was named after the Power Station Recording Studio in New York City, where their first album was conceived and recorded. And it's a great album. After Duran Duran's third album, titled Seven and the Ragged Tiger, that's the one that had The Reflex and New Moon on Monday and Hungry Like Wolves on Rio. Several hits were on that. But Rio, God dang it. The Reflex was one of their big hits. I remember that goofy song, The Reflex. And that was on Seven and the Ragged Tiger, as was New Moon on Monday. And I already said I'm repeating myself. And there was another one it's just having a brain toot. But there were several hit singles from that record. And the Duran Duran went on tour that year. They needed a break. So the members of Duran Duran took a planned short hiatus going into two separate projects. One of these was the band Arcadia, which featured front man of Duran Duran and lead singer Simon Le Bon, which maintained the melody and atmosphere of Duran Duran's previous recordings. They had a hit single, Election Day, that's been featured in retro music cuts on Fistful of Radio, which you can stream at fistfulofradio.com. The other was The Power Station. That was the other group that spun off temporarily, in which bassist John Taylor and guitarist Andy Taylor worked with Robert Palmer, Thompson, and Edwards to explore more rhythmic and aggressive music rooted in funk and rock and roll. It had an edgier sound than Duran Duran. Duran Duran was more pop, but they had some songs like Late Bar that had harder elements, but I digress. Roger Taylor was mainly the drummer for Arcadia, but also contributed percussion in The Power Station. The group began of something of a whim. It was something of a whim, and it was a one-time gathering of friends to provide backing to model and would-be singer Baby Buell, I guess that's how you pronounce her name, B-U-E-L-L, Bebe Buell, who wanted excuse me, to record a cover of the 1972 T-Rex song Get It On, Bang a Gong. Both John Taylor and Andy Taylor were eager to branch out from the synthesizer heavy pop of Duran Duran to play some Led Zeppelin flavored rock and roll. The participation of their idols from Chic lent the project a horn-infected funk vibe that meshed surprisingly well with the crunching guitars and booming drums. Soon the project evolved into the idea of a revolving supergroup. A tentative name for the band was Big Brother. The original plan for the one-album project was for the three musicians, the two Taylors and Thompson, to provide musical continuity to an album full of material, with a different singer performing on each track. Now, you remember Robert Palmer from I Got a Bad Case of Loving You, and I mean, he's produced so many iconic songs. He's dead now. Sadly, he died in 2003. We'll get to that in a moment. But he also was the root of why this band did not last long. We'll get to that, too, later. Now, other frontmen who were approached to take over the lead singer roles included Mick Jagger, Billy Idol, Mars Williams, Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs, and Mick Ronson. The group then invited Robert Palmer to record vocals for the track titled Communication. When he heard that they had recorded demos for Get It On, Bang a Gong, he asked to try out vocals on that song as well. They decided to record the entire album with him. The group was signed with Capitol Records. On February 16th, 1985, the Power Station performed Some Like It Hot and Get It On Saturday Night Live. It was the only time that Robert Palmer performed live with the original lineup, the original band, the Power Station. The horn section for the Power Station's Saturday Night Live appearance included saxophonist Lenny Pickett, who would join the show's house band that fall and eventually became the show's musical director. In March 1985, the Power Station issued a self-titled album, The Power Station, produced by Bernard Edwards, with some informal assistance from Nile Rodgers. It reached number 12 in the United Kingdom and number 6 in the United States album chart. Hell, I bought it. The record is sometimes referred to as Power Station 33 1/3, as the sleeve for the original vinyl record release bore that subtitle indicating the speed of a record turntable. Compact disc issues of the CD as a subtitle instead, while on the initial cassette copies highlighted Columbia's XDR process. And I have one of the cassettes right here, I'll show on camera, that I bought back then in 1985. I'm old. The album's cover graphics and color scheme, which were also used in the music videos, were based on sketches by John Taylor. He's multi-talented, musician and artist. Robert Palmer sang on the first album, after which he was replaced by Michael DeBars of the Live Aid concert, rejoining the band in 1995. 3 singles were released from the album The Power Station. 2 of them were major hits. The first, Some Like It Hot, reached number 14 on the United Kingdom singles chart and number 6 on the United States of America's Billboard Hot 100. The music video featured model Caroline Cosset, credited by her nickname Tula. The second single was Get It On, Bang a Gong, and it went to number 22 in the UK and number 9 in the United States, while competing against the Duran Duran single A View to a Kill, which was an American number 1 single, and it was the main title song for the James Bond movie of the same name, A View to a Kill. Communication as a single was not as successful, reaching number 34 on the charts in the United States, but disappeared after hitting number 75 in the United Kingdom. The Power Station Band also released a collection of their 3 live music videos titled The Power Station Video EP. The group's unexpected success led to 2 incompatible results. First, they decided to headline a summer tour in America with Paul Young, Nick Kershaw, the Bongos, and Orchestral in the Dark. Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. Second, Robert Palmer decided to record a solo album to take advantage of his sudden name recognition. thanks to the success of the singles from the Power Station record. This led to Robert Palmer's departure from the band. He quit the band while they were on tour. I was lucky to see him while he was lead singing. Tony Thompson, Andy Taylor, and future Power Station bass player Bernard Edwards all contributed to Robert Palmer's highly successful 1985 solo album titled Riptide. When Robert Palmer bailed on the tour, some critics referred to it as, quote, unprofessional behavior, unquote. Yeah, I would agree with that. Way to diss your fans. I have a tape from Westwood One, 1985, audio tape I recorded off the radio. It was a really nice piece on the Power Station. I mean, they could have gone on for years and years and years had it not been for Robert Palmer's antics, because those singles did really well, as you just heard. Let me turn this up a little bit. This is from the Houston, Texas concert in 1985, which you're listening to right now. Now, Robert Palmer was also accused of ripping off the Power Station's sound for his own solo records. Robert Palmer snapped back, saying, "Listen, I gave the Power Station that sound. They took it from me, not the other way around," unquote. With Robert Palmer bowing out, the band recruited singer-actor Michael DeBarres, formerly of Silverhead and Detective, for the tour. DeBarres also performed with them at the Live Aid charity concert in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania that summer in 1985. DeBarres' friendship with actor Don Johnson from Miami Vice led to the band's guest appearance on an episode of the television drama. Similarly, his friendship with producer Joel Silver led to the Power Station writing a song called "We Fight for Love" for the Arnold Schwarzenegger action film Commando, released in 1985. The track was originally titled "Someday, Somehow, Someone's Gotta Pay." I like that title. An EP containing the song, plus some live songs from their tour, was planned for release that same year, but was scrapped by their record company. The band folded in late 1985 as its members turned to other projects. John Taylor returned to Duran Duran, while Andy Taylor chose to leave Duran Duran in favor of a solo career. Bad move! A reformed Led Zeppelin played at the Live Aid concert in 1985, with Thompson sharing drumming duties with Phil Collins. Thompson was to take the place of John Bonham in a reformed Led Zeppelin. But after a few days of rehearsals in 1986, he was seriously injured in a car accident, and the reunion never got off the ground. Robert Palmer continued his revitalized solo career, while DeBarres, however you friggin' pronounce it, DeBarres, released his second solo album in 1986. The Power Station reunited in 1996 with its original members, Robert Palmer, Andy Taylor, John Taylor, and Tony Thompson. The group worked together on writing and arranging a new album. However, personal problems forced bassist John Taylor to withdraw from the project and leave the band before any recording took place. Producer Bernard Edwards from Chic, the bassist from Chic, stepped in to become the Power Station's bassist and new fourth member, playing all bass parts on the album titled Living in Fear, released in 1996. Almost done here, folks, with the Power Station story here. Edwards was prepared to tour with the group, but then died suddenly of pneumonia during a trip to Japan. The Power Station decided to press on as a trio, augmented by session musicians, and toured first with bassist Guy Pratt, and then second guitarist Luke Morley, to moderate success. They disbanded shortly thereafter. In 2002, EMI Music issued the Best of the Power Station as part of their 10 Best series. All tracks are from the first album, some in remixed form, except for Taxman from Living in Fear. And the final track, a previously unreleased live version of Dancing in the Street, recorded at the Hartford Civic Center in 1985 and sung by Michael DeBarres. Both Robert Palmer and Tony Thompson passed away in late 2003. EMI released a new version of the album, The Power Station, on February 21st, 2005, to commemorate the album's 20th anniversary. The package includes the original 8-song album, 7 bonus tracks, which were mostly remixes, and a 40-minute, 8-chapter DVD. Among the bonus tracks on the album is the track Someday, Somehow, Someone's Gotta Pay, from the Commando original soundtrack, sung by Michael DeBar. The original songs on that original 1985 album of The Power Station included the track Some Like It Hot, Murderous. I love that song, Murderous. You need to listen to this album. It's really good if you haven't heard it. Lonely Tonight, Communication, which should have fared better. That's a good song, too. Bang a Gong, Get It On. Go to Zero, about to say Less Than Zero. Harvest for the World, that's the main theme of this show, the Nostalgic Pod Blast. And Still in Your Heart. Now, I love the song Harvest for the World. I love that beat. That's why I chose it for the opening of the song. And fortunately, the Power Station and EMI Music let me use that. Very gracious of them to do that. Now, on camera, if you're watching, I have a gem record import of... See, back in the 80s, I used to love to collect dance mixes, which were basically album-sized. Some were 45 speed, some were 33.5 speed, but they were dance mixes of the singles, and they'd have other tracks that weren't released on the actual album. Duran Duran did a bunch. A lot of British, really it was a British thing originally. British artists really invented this. Madonna had a lot of these dance mixes. It was for the dance clubs and the dance club craze. Let me turn this around for the camera. And this has Some Like It Hot and The Heat Is On. 2 different mixes. There's a 7-inch mix. That's what she said. Unfortunately. And the longer version. But there's the graphic. There is the girl that's on the album. Now I'm going to show you the cassette, and then we're going to move on past the Power Station. I'm going to talk about Asia next time, or in a future Pod Blast. And still coming soon, I'm going to do a big show about Aaron Spelling and his television projects. Let me show the cassette for the camera. Here's a little audio cassette. You see that? And I have the vinyl version as well. And when you open up the cassette, see, I blame Robert Palmer for the breakup. Him trying to go solo in the middle of a tour. Kind of a dick move, excuse my language. And this is one of the few cassettes, not few, but they had lyrics. I used to love, now albums, vinyl, typically were more apt to have lyrics in them than cassettes. Now cassette, it was like roll the dice, whether the lyrics would be in there, but I love that the lyrics are included. Now with the age of the internet, it don't matter none. Look, you see that picture of the band? Of course, you can look it up. You can look up the lyrics to any song, but back then, I mean, I'm old. You know, this was cool when cassettes contained the actual lyrics of the songs. And this song you hear in the background is Lonely Tonight from that first album.
I didn't care for the second album.
I just like the original, and it's worth a listen if you've not heard it. It's very, very underrated. Hang on, let me put this up real quick while we listen to some of the music. I gotta put my props up on the wall before I break something. Bought that back in '85, that vinyl record, that dance mix. I'm afraid something's going to fall, like I said. So we're going to wrap the show in just a moment or two. I want to talk about our nostalgic treat of the week. Oh, and I have an update about Don Lynn. I'm going to keep this going in the background while I share the story with you. Now, I don't get all triggered. I use all sorts of news sources for my show when I research. This is from Fox News. They posted an exclusive update on Dawn Lynn. Now, who's Dawn Lynn? Dawn Lynn was the little girl who played Dodie on My Three Sons. And in the Nostalgic Pod Blast some weeks ago, when she slipped into a coma, I asked for good thoughts, good vibes, and prayers for her recovery. Headline, My Three Sons actress Dawn Lynn recovering after brain surgery and coma. Co-star says miracles do happen. Tina Cole. Hang on a second. This is serious, and I don't want any background interference. Hang on a second. Tina Cole, by the way, she played the mother of the triplets. She played Robbie's wife in My Three Sons. Pretty blonde. I'm getting distracted by the music because I love the power station. All right, but getting to Don Lynn and the good news. Good news. And by the way, coming up, I have a positive news story. I have my rant of the week, but before that, I'm going to have praise of the week. I have some good news and some good stuff here. Let's start with this good news story. Tina Cole received a pleasant surprise on Sunday, a call from her former My Three Sons co-star, little Don Lynn, who, incidentally, is the older sister of Leif Garrett. Life Garrett. I'm sorry, I've always mispronounced. The fans get pissed at me. Life Garrett. L-E-I-F is how it looks on paper, but it's Life, pronounced Life Garrett. She's Life Garrett's sister. And they worked together on a Wonder Woman episode, the season 3 premiere. I'm all over the place, folks, but that's a weird episode where she plays a fan of her real-life brother. My Teenage Idol is Missing is the title of that Wonder Woman episode. But the big sister, and she's tiny, of Life Garrett is recovering, and that's the great news, folks. Don Lynn, the former child star of the popular 1960s sitcom My Three Sons, fell into a coma in late 2022 after undergoing brain surgery. She had swelling of the brain. Quote, I saw a call coming in from her number, and I expected it to be her husband John calling, as he usually does, unquote. The actress told Fox News Digital, quote, I was in an indoor soccer game for my grandson, and I could hardly hear. I stepped outside and was stunned. I heard her voice. It was raspy, but it was her. I just said, Dawn, is that really you? And she said, yes, it's really me. And the tears just came. I was in shock. And it was just so wonderful. I couldn't believe it, unquote. Tina Cole continues, quote, the last time I saw her, she was in a neurological rehab unit, and she still wasn't responding a whole lot to me, unquote. Cole shared, quote, so to hear her voice was just thrilling. We had a Christmas miracle, and when she came out of the coma, and they're very hopeful that she'll be home by Easter. Isn't that great? Miracles do happen. That's a really good feel-good story there. So let's talk about the nostalgic toy of the week really briefly. We start to wind down this edition of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. Hope you enjoyed the comic books, folks. Any comic book fans? And I have many more to share in future episodes of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. Future installments, I should say. But this was, I consider this a toy for a teenager. Not dirty. Those out there that have a dirty mind, I know a lot of you have immature, dirty minds, as I do. But 40 years ago, on Wednesday, March 2nd, 1983, over 40 years ago now, this blows my mind how time has flown, the first compact disc players were sold in the United States of America, along with the first 16 record albums on compact disc in that format. The first album on compact disc, can you guess what it was? If you're in the Nostalgic Pod Blast Facebook group, you already know, because I posted it. If you happen to catch that post, you might not have seen the post, but I'll tell you, give you a moment while I stall so you can think it out. But do you know what the very first album was released on compact disc? Listen to that solo in the background. Time's up. It was Billy Joel's 52nd Street. That was the first record released on compact disc. The first CD player was the Sony CDP-101 out of Japan, which cost around $1,000 in 1983 money. In Japan, the first compact disc player was sold on Friday, October 1st, 1982. Now, some brief history about the invention of the compact disc and the compact disc player and digital music. American inventor James T. Russell is known for inventing the first system to record digital video information on an optical transparent foil that is lit from behind by a high-power halogen lamp. Russell's patent application was first filed in 1966. And he was granted a patent in 1970. Following litigation in court, Sony and Philips licensed Russell's recording patents, then held by a Canadian company called Optical Recording Corporation, Optical Recording Corporation, in the 1980s. The compact disc is not based on Russell's invention. It is an evolution of Laserdisc technology, where a focused laser beam is used that enables the high information density required for high-quality digital audio signals. Prototypes were developed by Philips and Sony independently in the late 1970s. In 1979, Sony and Philips set up a joint task force of engineers to design a new digital audio disc. After a year of experimentation and discussion, the Red Book CDDA standard was published in 1980. After their commercial release in 1982, compact discs and their players were extremely popular. Despite costing up to $1,000, over 400,000 CD players were sold in the United States between 1983 and 1984. The success of the compact disc has been credited to the cooperation between Philips and Sony, who came together to agree upon and develop compatible hardware. The unified design of the compact disc allowed consumers to purchase any disc or player from any company and allowed the CD to dominate the at-home music market unchallenged. Unlike early Laserdisc players, the first compact disc players already used laser diodes instead of larger helium neon lasers. That's for the engineers out there that are listening to your nostalgic pod blast. And as I said, the Sony CDP-101 hit the streets of Japan on October 1st, 1982. And that was the world's first commercially released compact disc player. And I have a photo of it in the Nostalgic Pod Blast Facebook group, if you want to see what it looks like. Or just Google it. Hell, you don't need me, right? Had some comments come in when I posted it. Richard Moran said, now they're all but obsolete, talking about the compact disc player. And he's right. But I think they'll return, just like vinyl records made a comeback. And cassettes, now the younger generations are actually collecting cassettes and videotapes. Even though they have inferior audio and video quality compared to 1080p or 4K, they're collectible. That suits me fine, because I have a ton of sealed videotapes, cassette tapes, all that stuff. I'll just put them in storage. Just sit on them. Now, I replied to Richard Moran in the Nostalgic Pod Blast Facebook group, and I told him, I said, you know, even though I stream, I still use compact disc to this day. The same with Blu-ray and DVD. If there's no Blu-ray release, I'll buy the DVD. But I prefer 1080p or higher resolution. Now, if I really like a record album or a TV show or a movie, I want to have it in physical form, because we've talked about the shell game that streaming companies can play, like case in point, Friends, which was one of the #1 streaming shows in history. On Netflix, well, the rights owners at NBC, they yanked it from Netflix, put it on Peacock, their new streaming service at the time. And that upset a lot of people that didn't have Peacock, that were addicted to watching Friends. Even though you can watch it in syndication, you can watch it on commercial TV, but a lot of people prefer to just binge it via a stream. Item. Now let's move on past music. I guess I'll keep this going a little bit longer in the background, this concert. So you get a concert on the Pod Blast. Houston, Texas, 1985, the Power Station, just to repeat, in case you didn't catch what this was. So I'm going to forego the TV cliche of the week for this edition to move the show along, and also because I didn't bother to put one together for you, to be honest with you, and talk about a new feature, the Compliment of the Week. As you know, I'm a me TV freak and a TV freak in general, and I'm just an outright freak. Well, for those that don't know, MeTV is a free, over-the-air national classic television network in the United States of America owned by Weigel Broadcasting, that's spelled W-E-I-G-E-L, which in recent years has produced some wonderful original programming, such as a show called Collector's Call with host Lisa Whelchel, best known as Blair on The Facts of Life, and she competed and almost won Survivor. Well, in addition to that show, Collector's Call, in which Lisa goes to the homes of collectors or virtually, either in person or virtually, and with an appraiser to assess the collection, the value of it. And then maybe persuade the owner of the collectibles to do a trade. That's why it's called Collector's Call. It's up to the collector. It's their call. Do they want to trade their precious item or keep it? Well, in addition to Collector's Call, they have a newer 1-hour original show which is wrapped around classic Warner Brothers, Universal, MGM cartoons, and other cartoons called Tune In With Me. And Tune is spelled T-O-O-N, like cartoon. Tune In With Me, as in MeTV, which hold it. This is our theme.
Together, everyone to see. Half of us are satisfied, the other half's in need. All of love's bounty turns fiery. Whoa, when will there be a harvest for the
Okay, I had to pause there, folks, for our theme song, Harvest for the World by the Power Station. So tune in with me. Like I said, they do these funny live original bits wrapped around classic commercials. And it airs Monday through Friday on MeTV. And again, that's a free over-the-air national network that you can get through digital rabbit ears if you're in the vicinity of an affiliate. And some cable outlets pick up MeTV. Like here in Atlanta, I'm an Xfinity subscriber. I haven't cut in the cord yet. And they have MeTV, which is on channel 17 on Xfinity in the Atlanta, Georgia area, for instance. And AT&T Uverse has picked up MeTV as well on their cable platforms and digital platforms. But anyway, Tune In With Me is a really, really cool show. And it airs at 7 a.m. It's an hour show, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. immediately after My Three Sons. Now, Tune In With Me, tune as in cartoon, began on Monday, January 1st, 2021 on MeTV. The show was created by Neil Sabin and is hosted by actor and comedian Bill Leff. Last name spelled L-E-F-F. He's also a radio personality in Chicago on WGN Radio 720 in Chicago from 5:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. He's a co-host. But if you recognize his face, possibly from the movies Major League. He played Bobby James in Major League and Major League 2. And as I said, he's a morning drive radio co-host with Wendy Snyder on WGN Radio 720 during the week as well. So obviously they pre-record the MeTV stuff, probably on the weekend, but I don't know. Now, Tune In With Me on MeTV has my favorite cartoon, Tex Avery's Droopy the Dog, in heavy rotation. Hello, all you happy people. I love Droopy the Dog by Tex Avery. And they also play the Pink Panther, pretty heavy in the rotation of cartoons. But as I said earlier, I don't think I've gotten to that yet. Nope, never mind. I digress. That's right, it's coming up next. In my rant of the week, I have some, not about the show, but it relates to the show, but not anything about the show, because I love this show. It's funny as hell. So, the reason it's called Tune In With Me, also not only tune for cartoons, but there's a character named Tuna, which is a cartoon-loving tuna fish. and actor and comedian Kevin Fleming performs the puppet, as well as other characters in live-action form, including former presidents. Also in the cast is actor Layla Gorstein, who plays various roles, but reportedly she left the show, although reruns, including her appearances, still air on MeTV. And there are plenty of impersonations, improvisation, amongst the information about classic cartoons that they show and share with the viewers. And that team really does a great job, and it's worth a look. And that's my compliment of the week. Now, by the way, the parent company of MeTV, Weigel Broadcasting Corporation and Company, was founded by John Weigel on June 4th, 1964. And it's currently owned by Norman Shapiro. It's based in Chicago, Illinois, alongside its flagship station WCIU-TV at 26 North Houston Street in Greektown. And they currently own 25 television stations, 7 digital over-the-air television networks, including Heroes and Icons, the Decades Channel, Movies, which shows classic movies, MeTV, Start TV, Story Television, which began in 2022, and they own 1 radio station. And Weigel Media has $257 million in revenue with 311 employees. Item. Now it's time for my fake rant of the week. And I have 3 for you, so it's 3 rants in 1 segment. Like the search commercial, it's 2 mints in 1. So, this is a little off the wall. I typically go off the wall a lot in this show, the Nostalgic Pod Blast. But here's my first of 3 rants. Okay, when you go to the dentist, what happens every year or every second visit? You get x-rays, right? Well, riddle me this, Batman and Batgirl. Why is the lead shielding put over your body, like your chest cavity and guts, but not over where the x-rays are zapping? Your head! It's literally like you're microwaving your brain when you get x-rays done. Am I right? Am I right or what? I'm not trying to sound hostile there. That's a line I copied from a BJ and the Bear episode titled Siege. There was a bad guy. I don't want to say the word T for terror something. These American terror people invade the Country Comfort truck stop that BJ and the Bear and Hammer, his nefarious fellow trucker that he butts heads with, played by Charles Napier, who was in Star Trek, the original series, The Way to Eden, playing space hippie Adam, the ill-fated space hippie. And he was in The Cable Guy, played the cop. Sing us a song! You'd recognize Charles Napier. Look him up. But he played Hammer in BJ and the Bear. Anyway, there was an episode where these bad guys take over the Country Comfort hangout of the truckers, including BJ. And this jackass had this line. He kept saying, "Am I right? Am I right or what?" And it was just so annoying. It was supposed to be annoying in the story. Man, I wish that show would wind up somewhere on one of these diginettes. But anyway, I digress. So, I'm serious, though. Semi-serious. I call this my fake rant of the week, but look, I'm not a medical man, clearly. But why do they put lead shielding of your body and not where they're zapping? It's like you're literally microwaving your head. By the way, I don't microwave my food. I don't microwave my food or my face. I do get x-rays when I have to by my dentist, but I try to put it off. I'll do it every few years. I won't do it when, like, Chance, can we get your x-rays now? It's for your own benefit. I'm like, let's hold off another session, another visit. Yeah, just clean my teeth and tell me if there's something wrong. But no, I don't want any x-rays. Thank you very much. Also, I'm not trying to talk about me because nobody gives a shit about me. It's about nostalgia. Excuse my French there, listeners. Have to bleep that out. I've not had tap water since 1997. I just don't trust it. That's because I was trained. I used to work at Crystal Springs Bottled Water Company in sales, and we were trained, and I learned a lot about the dangers of municipal water, meaning tap water, municipal water supply. In the whole country of the USA and around the world, there have been outbreaks of something called Cryptosporidium, which is a parasite, a parasitic breakout in municipal water supplies. And it causes malaria-like symptoms and, unfortunately, death in elderly and older people and younger people. And you need a 0.5 micron filter, or really a 5 micron filter will filter it out but it literally will swim in your water. I don't mean to be scare tactic here. The only good thing about tap water is the fluoride, but you don't swallow fluoride. I mean, the tap water when you're rinsing, right? When you brush your teeth. You know what I do? I rinse with mouthwash. I don't even use tap water at all to rinse. I'll brush, and then I will gargle with mouthwash to get rid of the toothpaste on my teeth and gums. Again, I know someone's probably screaming at me out there in the medical field like, you moron! No, the x-rays don't cause harm to your brain. Well, I'm not going to take that risk. You know, there's brain cancer for a reason. I'll just leave it at that. So that's my fake rant number 1. Now, fake rant number 2 out of 3. Those who exclusively stream the programs that they watch in their leisure time won't get this, but I'm sure you'll remember this from watching TV in recent years, network TV, old school, right? When you're watching FCC, Federal Communications regulated television, what happens at the beginning of a show? You see this little rating square superimposed in your TV screen at the beginning of the program you're watching with the rating, such as TVG, TVPG, etc. Well, as I was enjoying the aforementioned Tune In With Me on MeTV the other day, the rating of TVPG pops up at the start of the show. And that stands for parental guidance. Why is it rated TVPG? It's a cartoon show. And they're not playing the controversial ones like Coal Black and the Seven Dwarves or something. They're playing just good, clean cartoons. And the bits they do are not, they're family friendly. They're funny. They're clever and funny, but they're not risque in any way. So here's my point. I don't think the government employee, whoever, my rant is against whoever designates these ratings. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're probably not even watching the show. They probably have a wheel with a rating, and they spin the wheel, and wherever the arrow lands is the rating they assign that program. Case in point. Conversely, I was watching a rerun of Barnaby Jones on MeTV. I DVR'd, and at the start of the show is a rating of TVG. That popped up. Okay, well, in that particular episode, there were no less than 3 very realistic murders in that episode, including a wheelchair-bound woman pushed into a swimming pool where she drowns to death, a vicious and bloody guard dog attack with blood and everything on this woman's hand, and a dog being hit over the head with a gun barrel, which is simulated, but, you know, it's simulated abuse to animals, you know, whether it's simulated or not. I didn't like seeing that scene. This lady... the woman who pushed the handicapped lady into the pool to her death is trying to get away, and the guard dog jumps at her and gets her arm in the dog's jaws, and that's where you see the blood flying, and then she grabs the barrel of a gun and hits the dog over the head. I'm like, what the hell is this? TVG? Who in the hell at the FCC and the government is designating the ratings for these TV shows? Mr. Magoo? I don't think they're even watching. I think they're spinning the ratings wheel. And then there was another murder where someone's like choked to death in that same episode. TVG, but yet they give Tune In With Me, that innocent show, TVPG. Just, what the hell's going on here? So that's my rant number 2. Rant number 3. Let me see if we're still on the air. I might have been kicked off the air. Nope, still on the air. Why are TV shows altered for home video releases, but movies are not? Now, I'm not talking about censorship, but that pisses me off, too. We talked about that before, how they censored certain words for home video releases. I can understand broadcast TV. I understand you have to skip episodes. I don't like it, don't agree with it, but it's not my call. I understand for sensitivity issues, they skip episodes of certain shows. Like Beverly Hillbillies will skip an episode where they've got the rebel flag. You know, people have an issue with that. And Barnaby Jones, I already talked about this. I won't go into it in more detail, but they released a DVD set back in 2011, I think. 2011, where they bleeped out the N-word. Although, you know, and it was a white guy saying it, actor, saying the word. Now, they've released, other competitors like Sony's released episodes of Sanford and Son, The Jeffersons, where black actors uttered that word. It was probably written by a white person, but I'm not defending that word. Don't misunderstand. My point is this. Here's my rant 3. Here's another bit of censorship or altering of television shows for home video releases. So I talked about that censorship, but in this case, I'm talking about background music being stripped and replaced in shows like My Three Sons, The Fugitive, WKRP in Cincinnati. Now, I get it. I'm not stupid. It's all about the Benjamins and music rights. And those examples are from years ago. And some were reissued, like The Fugitive has been reissued with some claim 90% of the music restored. But I just don't understand why television shows are toyed with, but movies are not. Why? I don't understand the laws. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong here. But why is it okay to change for home video paid release a television show, but not a movie? What's the damn difference? I don't like double standards. And that is yet another double standard. Television shows are messed with, but feature films are not in terms of the home video market. Okay. Now I gotta calm down. Gotta calm down. Because I don't want to tick these people off. We love these people. They're so good to me. Talking about Remind Magazine. Here's the latest issue as we're live. Where Are They Now? 1980s edition of Remind Magazine and their $12 a year offer. Get that on camera. Got to talk about these people, and they kind of go hand in hand. Different company than Weigel and MeTV, but it's a similar thing. It's nostalgia. It's fun. Oh, crap. I got to get this on camera better. What can you get for $12 a year anymore? Nothing, right? Dollar stores are changing the names of their very operations because you really can't get anything for $1 anymore. But you can get Remind Magazine for $1 for $1 an issue for a limited time. And it is going away. So you got to take advantage now. Let me get that on camera real good there. Ah, hell. Shit. Excuse my language, folks. Family-friendly show. Oh, God. This really went south on me, this camera. I have the camera set up just right, and I'm so scared I'm going to mess it up. All this time I've been on camera, it's been a little off-center. It looked like, you know, on Batman, how the camera would be tilted sideways when you'd see a villain, like the Riddler or the Joker. Well, my camera was sideways. I finally have it centered. That'll have to do. I don't want to keep it that way. Something fell over and knocked over my camera recently, and I got it set up just right. But let's get back to Remind Magazine and the nice thing these people do for only $1 an issue if you subscribe. It's $5 an issue if you go to your newsstand. If you go to Barnes & Noble, $5 an issue. But listen to this. If you're here, chances are you like nostalgia. Well, Remind Magazine is a monthly magazine which is loaded with interesting articles, games, full-color photos, interviews with your favorite stars, creators, and personalities, and lots more. Remind Magazine offers fresh takes on popular entertainment from days gone by. Each issue has dozens of brain-teasing puzzles, trivia quizzes, classic comics, and monthly themed features from the 1950s through the 1990s. And the best part is it comes to you in the mail each and every month, just like the good old days when you wait for your favorite magazine to arrive, like National Geographic World or Dynamite Magazine, Sports Illustrated Magazine, Boys Life Mag. You get the point. Well, Remind is not written for kids like those magazines were. It's written for adults while gently tapping your inner child. Your entire family will love it, and right now you can get it, as I've said 5 times now, for just $1 an issue or $12 the entire year. What can you get for $1 anymore? Streaming networks charge more than $12 for just 1 month, much less a year, and if you give it as a gift, they'll think you spent a heck of a lot more than $12. And also, they'll think of you all year round. It'd make a great graduation gift. It would make a great birthday gift. And here's how you order. If you got a pen ready, well, while you get your pen, you could do it the 21st century way and go to remindmagazine.com and order right there. Or you can call toll-free 855-773-6463 and order right there over the phone using your Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. And a kind order specialist will assist you in processing your Remind subscription for $12. No tax, tax-free, $12. Please mention the Nostalgic Podblast when you order. That's remindmagazine.com or call 855-773-6463. They have a secure order page on their website, remindmagazine.com. Now back to this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. Ooh, I like this. Let's listen to the communication song. Hang on.
Keep
Let's listen.
I tell you somebody's fooling around without chances on the danger line. I'll cross that bridge when I find it. Another day to make my stand. Oh, our time is no time for deciding. And I should find a helping hand. Oh, why don't you use it? Try not to lose it. Time don't lose it. Why don't you lose it? Why not to lose it? Why time don't lose it? The reflex is a lonely child who's waiting by the bar. The reflex is a charge of finding treasure in the dark. And watching our lucky clover isn't that bizarre? Every little thing the reflex does is to answer with a question mark. I'm on a ride and I wanna get off, but they won't slow down the roundabout. I saw the rainbow in the TV set, don't wanna be around when this gets out. Why don't you use it? Why not to use it? Time don't lose it. Why don't you use it? Why not to use it? Time don't lose it. The reflex is a lonely child who's waiting by the porch. The reflex is a charge of finding treasure in the dark. And watching our lucky clover isn't that bizarre? Every little thing the reflex does is to answer with a question mark.
I've never done this before. Have a concert on in the background. And this is a concert I saw, like I said, back in 1985. But enough about me. And let's get on with the show here. We got to acknowledge some birthdays. I'll just roll right through. I usually would play the typical birthday music, but let's continue as we listen to more of this concert of the Power Station. I want to acknowledge some folks. Had birthdays in March, but before we talk about March, I didn't really forget. I let a member of the Nostalgic Pod Blast group do a post about the birthday of Bernadette Peters, who I first noticed in the movie The Jerk, released in 1979 with the star Steve Martin. And that was the first R-rated movie I ever saw in the theater in 1979 when I was 7 or 8 years old with my grandpa in St. Louis, Missouri. I don't think he knew it was an R-rated movie. But I laughed, even as a child, at that movie. It was so funny, The Jerk. But, yeah, I wanted to say, Bernadette Peters is 75 now. She's 75 years young. She was born on Tuesday, February 28th, 1948 in New York City. So happy belated birthday to Ms. Bernadette Peters. What a triple threat of talent. Broadway, she can sing, she can dance, she can act. She's great. Let's get on with the March birthdays. We already talked about James Doohan. I wanted to separate him from the pack with his heavenly birthday, which I did. But happy 69th birthday. Hang on, let me listen to this real quick.
Thank you, you guys.
I haven't heard this in a while, this concert.
Now we're gonna get hot.
Yeah.
Would you like that? Let me see your hands.
Happy 69th birthday to actress Catherine Bach, who was born as Catherine Bachman on Monday, March 1st, 1954 in Cleveland, Ohio. We all remember those Daisy Dukes that she wore on television. Ron Howard also turned 69 on March 1st, 2023. No cracks. And Ron Howard has got to be the most successful former child actor of all time. He's not my favorite. That would be Bill Mumy and then Stanley Livingston. But he's the most successful as a director, financially. I don't know the situation of the others I just mentioned, the aforementioned former child actors. But I would imagine, educated guess, that Ron Howard is leading the pack. And his daughter's in the business, too. So, happy 69th birthday to Catherine Bach and Ron Howard. What a creator Ron Howard is. Happy birthday to actress Barbara Ann Luna, otherwise known as Barbara Luna. I know that name may not ring a bell, but when I describe some of her roles, most of you will remember who she is. She had a birthday back on March 2nd. She was born in Manhattan, New York. And Barbara Luna is known to genre TV fans as Lieutenant Marlena Moreau in the classic Star Trek second season episode Mirror, Mirror, which was the Opposite Universe episode. She played the captain's yeoman. Sexy, like they had the lower cut miniskirts in the Thies. Thies was the costume designer of Star Trek. He designed some really cool, like more revealing outfits for the cast and the guest cast of that episode. And that's the one where Spock had a beard. Anyway, I digress. A lot of people don't like Star Trek, so I'll move on. But she's also known as playing Hawk's mate Kuri in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century in the season 2 2-hour premiere Time of the Hawk and the Guardians episode. She also was in The $6 Million Man, playing Leslie Morales in the episode Vulture of the Andes with Lee Majors. And she played a really cool role in the Invader show we talked about earlier tonight in an episode titled Storm from Season 1. I don't want to give it away for those that haven't seen it, but she's so good in that, and that was shot the season before her appearance on Star Trek in Mirror, Mirror in Season 2. Now, about Star Trek, last February I forgot to acknowledge the birthday of Sherry Jackson, who I did talk about in the Danny Thomas show. She was the original eldest daughter. Sorry, Sherry, but she just was. She was the eldest daughter in that show, and she quit that show. But she was in Lost in Space. She was in Gunn, the movie, the Peter Gunn movie, and she was topless in that. And she was in Star Trek playing an android, a sexy android, in What Are Little Girls Made Of, an episode that was written by Robert Bloch, who wrote the screenplay to the Alfred Hitchcock classic movie Psycho a few years before that. She was in What Are Little Girls Made Of? And also in that cast was Ted Cassidy. Lurch. He played an android, bald. Anyway, she had a birthday. She actually bought that film for me. She probably wouldn't want me to say this, but she bought a 16mm film print of that episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? That I've talked about before. It was a military print for the U.S. military. And she bought that some years ago. And she's still around, and I feel really bad about, not that she's probably not listening to the show, but we're Facebook friends. Maybe she does. I don't know. It might pop up in her feed and she'd check it out. But happy belated birthday to Sherry Jackson. I'll do it properly next year. Now, happy 78th birthday to the Harrison Ford of television, Dirk Benedict, better known as Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica and Face in the A-Team original television show. He was born on Thursday, March 1st, 1945 in Helena, Montana. Got a lot of his stuff on film. I have a Charlie's Angels he did on film. I have Battlestar Galactica, including the final episode of Galactica 1980. It was the very last regular episode where he's marooned with Cylons on a planet, and it's a pretty good episode. I have that on film, 16mm reel-to-reel film, and I have Sherry Jackson in an Incredible Hulk episode on film, and with earthquakes happen. Anyway, they used a lot of stock footage from Earthquake. Oh, that's another story, how Spielberg got pissed when Incredible Hulk Season 1 used stock footage of Duel, his television epic movie, which was released theatrically. But we've talked about it before. I won't go into it. Let's continue with birthdays as we start to wind down the show. Happy 61st birthday to rocker John Bon Jovi. He was born on Friday, March 2nd, 1962 in New Jersey. In Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Of course, he's the frontman, and he formed the band Bon Jovi. which has released to date 15 albums. So, got a quick correction corner. I don't have that sound effect loaded that I produced with Al Hardy and Tom Williams back when we used to do the show together. By the way, behind the scenes, we're cool. It's just there's some stuff I can't really talk about that's preventing us from doing a show with some proper video and things. But one day we'll get it together. But here's my correction. Way back in the October 16th, 2022 live edition of the Nostalgic Podcast, hell, it's always live, with Catherine Mary Stewart from The Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet. Well, I referred in a section, I was talking about what came first, Aquaman or Submariner, and in that segment I referred to the giant horseshoe that Aquaman rode in the animated Super Friends show that you saw in the opening credits. Well, obviously I meant to say it was a giant seahorse, not a horseshoe, which Aquaman hitchhiked on in Super Friends, the animated show. Also in that same episode, I referred to the Human Torch's alter ego in the Fantastic Four as being Johnny Blaze. Wrong. I talked about that earlier tonight. Naturally, that would be Johnny Storm, who's the human half of the Fantastic Four incarnation of the Human Torch. Johnny Blaze is the Ghost Rider in Ghost Rider Volume 2. Volume 1 was a Western comic book character. But Volume 2 first appeared in Marvel Spotlight Issue 5. I should have that for the camera. He was a flaming skull who rode a motorcycle, and Nicolas Cage played him in the movies. So that's Johnny Blaze. Believe me, I know better. I misspoke as I was live. I went off script. So Johnny Storm is not the same as Johnny Blaze. Now it's time for the Nostalgic Treat of the Week. That's a wrap on birthdays as we continue to listen to the concert. The Nostalgic Treat of the Week is something from the 1980s. Sour cream and onion Doritos. Man, I loved them. And Frito-Lay brought them back in 2011 for a limited time, and I scooped them up. Cool Ranch Doritos replaced sour cream and onion Doritos, but now you can't even find Cool Ranch either. And I think the sour cream and onion were definitely better. And someone chimed in and said, try this. You'll thank me later. Get the nacho cheese Doritos, which, of course, you can find, and dip them in yogurt. It's something my mom taught me, and it's really good. And it reminds me of sour cream and onion Doritos, and I thought, I'll try that. It sounds gross, but I'll try it. But why not just dip it into sour cream? But I'm going to try both. I will do that to satisfy my itch for my fix for the long-lost sour cream and onion Doritos I loved in the 1980s because I'm old. Now let's quickly talk about some nasty throwback foods from the 1980s. And this goes back to my rant tonight. Microwave food. How about microwave French fries? They were disgusting. They weren't crunchy. They were soggy. They were nasty. And I hope those never come back. And Steakums. You can still find Steakums. I used to love Steakums, but now I just think they're disgusting. And I never microwave anything. I left my microwave back in the 1980s. Even though I do have one at home, to this day, I never use it. That's for guests only. Never use it. I think it causes cancer. I said it. That's my opinion. Chance Bartels, host of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. That's just my personal opinion. I think microwave food is no good. But you know what? If you eat fast food, and I try to stay away from it, they're microwaving burgers. You better believe it. Burger King, that's microwave. So even if you're not microwaving your own food, that's why it's best to just try to eat well. Cook your own stuff, fresh vegetables. That's your advice of the week in this edition of the Nostalgic Podcast. Don't microwave your food and eat fresh. Eat a lot of vegetables. And don't drink tap water. That's the thing. People always talk about how the Mexican sodas are made with real sugar. You know, I get my Coca-Cola from Mexico. That's fine. But haven't you heard the expression, don't drink the water? You're still drinking questionable water in those imported drinks. Yeah, you're getting the sugar. But I remember Pepsi, and you're probably a Coke person. Coke, is it? You know, especially if you're in Atlanta, Georgia. This is Coke country. And they did release real sugar versions without the corn syrup. And I wish they'd bring it back. Pepsi did with the Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, and Pepsi. And those were cool, made with real sugar. Well, Well, I'm going to try to hurry this along. I had some more nasty foods, but as we're live, it's past midnight on Friday night. Usually I do the show on Sunday, but I have something going on Sunday, so I wanted to knock the show out. And plus, I wanted to do this on the real heavenly birthday of James Doohan, Scotty on Star Trek. Item. If we say yesterday, why don't we say yesternight? Just saying. Just an observation there. Quick reminder to subscribe to the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel. I'd appreciate it. We're getting good views, but the subscriptions are kind of light. I would very much appreciate. I think what's happening is, I know I only have a channel because I produce content. Most people don't have a channel. They don't take the time to create a free channel. It just takes a few seconds. But most people will just go to YouTube to watch stuff. I get it. I just don't have a whole lot of subscribers, but I'm really pleased with the views, and I'm grateful for every single listener and viewer of the Nostalgic Podblast, whether it's live or after the fact. I am very grateful and appreciate it. I'm trying to get the rest of this concert in. Let's see how much time's left. Well, I don't think we'll make another half hour because I've tried to condense this down. Did you see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? I guess you might have checked out, maybe you didn't, but I did a 2-part review. First part was history of Ant-Man, showing comic books on camera as I did with the Silver Surfer tonight. And the first edition had Jeff Logan reviewing it. And then the second, part 2, and it's on YouTube. You can see it on your television. Just go to YouTube, the app, pull it up. It's free. Shane B called in. Sir Drinks a Lot. And damn, he gave me his other easier to find name for his channel, and I freaking forgot it. I need to write that down. So, and it's just at the beginning of each of those shows. I didn't devote the whole entire Nostalgic Podblast episode to Ant-Man Quantumania because I try to have variety for the nostalgia fan. Don't want to talk about just one thing. Did I show you? I think I showed all of the... yeah, I did. I showed most of the comics. The only ones I didn't show were the Fantasy Masterpieces, all of the covers of the reprints of the Silver Surfer. They're basically the same covers with different colors, colorization. And the originals are good enough. And I don't like that they abridged the reprints and omitted on purpose, intentionally by design, 2 to 4 pages of the double-sized editions. And they did that with the Marvel Tales with Spider-Man as well. But let me make sure I didn't... Oh, I do want to mention briefly some birthdays as we listen to some more birthdays. I know I said we wrapped, but let's talk about March 4th real quick. Catherine O'Hara was born on March 4th, 1954 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I loved her in SCTV, Second City Television, in Toronto. And, man, she's just a fantastic, underrated talent. And, of course, she was the mom in the Home Alone movies, too. And she's done a lot of other things. But she's won a Primetime Emmy Award. But SCTV is what put her on the map. And she's also known for frequent appearances in films of Tim Burton and Christopher Guest. And she's the sister of singer Mary Margaret O'Hara. And she herself is a fairly decent singer. So happy birthday to Catherine O'Hara. Listen to this. Otis Redding. It's a classic song. Patricia Heaton had a birthday on March 4th. She was born in 1958 in Cleveland, Ohio. A lot of talent comes out of Cleveland, Ohio. The current host of The Price is Right, Drew Carey, Marine. He served in the Marines, the U.S. Marines. He's born in Cleveland. A lot of good people came from Cleveland. Not a lot on March 4th in terms of birthdays. I'm going to go to March 5th, too. That would be Sunday, March 5th, 2023. Can't believe how the year is flying by. And thankfully, there weren't that many deaths. I talked about a couple notable ones, but, that's just such a bummer to talk about people that passed away. And I'm trying not to have this be the biography network. Nothing more boring than that. Let me go to March 5th birthdays. I'm stalling because I want to hear more of this concert. I'm trying to get the whole thing in. Eva Mendes, her husband's directing the Fall Guy movie. She was born on March the 5th, 1974 in Miami, Florida. She once said she'd never get married, but she did. She, what's his name? David Leitch. He's a former stuntman and director, and he's directing The Fall Guy. Lee Majors and his wife Faith Majors are over there in Sydney, Australia, filming the Fall Guy movie. Can't wait for that to come out. It won't be out till I think 2024. Happy birthday in heaven to Andy Gibb, the youngest of the brothers Gibb. He died on March 10th, 1988 of cocaine overdose. Victoria Principal was his one-time lover for a while, and reportedly she gave him an ultimatum. You quit the drugs or you quit me, and he chose the drugs, and then he was dead shortly thereafter. Sad story. But he was born in Manchester, England, Andy Gibb. Shadow dancing. I Just Want to Be Your Everything. He had some hits, and he was talented. And Solid Gold, remember that show Solid Gold? God, I'm talking too loud into the mic. You hear that? Being a loudmouth. Happy, moving on past the tragic Andy Gibb. Dean Stockwell. He was born on March 5th, 1936 in Los Angeles, California. He passed away on November 7th, 2021. He was in the original Quantum Leap, among other things. I'm holding up a Twinkie for the camera. I bought a box of Twinkies the other day. That's why I can't lose weight eating this stuff. Jack Cassidy, happy birthday in heaven. He died way back on December 12th, 1976. Not to be a downer, but he was born on March 5th, 1927 in Richmond Hill, New York. He died in that fire, a tragic fire, back on December 12th, 1976. Terrible thing. Oh, Tina Marie, singer Tina Marie. She was born March 5th, 1956 in Santa Monica, California. She passed away, I didn't know this, on December 26th, 2010. God bless her. She sang that song, I Just Want to Be Your Lover Girl. That's featured on Retro Music Cuts that you can hear at Fistful of Radio or stream it at fistfulofradio.com when it's on. And that's in the rotation. And that's a song, it must have been a mainstay at strip clubs. Not that I know. I've never been a fan of throwing my money away to strip club, even though I look like the kind of guy that would be there every weekend with my face, if you're watching on camera. But she had, I like that song. It was a hit song. Anyway, happy birthday in heaven to Fred Williamson, born on March the 5th, 1938 in Gary, Indiana. He was in a Chips episode. He was in Roller Disco, a 90-minute episode with Life Garrett and many other stars. So that's a funny one. Had that on film. Sold it not too long ago because it's out on DVD. Let me just scan through my list here. Usually I'd have this prepared. I can rattle it off, but it gives us a chance to listen to some more of this Power Station concert from 1985 in Houston, Texas. I'm going to do a future pod blast about Olivia Newton-John. I think there's a whole episode of content there with good clips. I have some exclusive audio from my collection. We'll get to it in the near future. And I have big guest booked. You're going to love her. You know her. You love her. I can't say who it is yet. That's all from March 5th in terms of birthdays that I think we would care about. Go on to March 6th, 2023. So I can stall as you listen to more of this concert. Listen to that guitar. Wow.
Houston!
born on March 6th, 1972, is Shaquille O'Neal in Newark, New Jersey. The former basketball player who currently is a sports analyst and everything else. He endorses, I don't know how many products. Met him in person. He's a gentle giant, hell of a nice guy. And he's considered one of the greatest basketball players ever. And he's also one of the heaviest and tallest NBA players of all time. And he's one of the most important players in the history of the LA Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal helped the team win 3 consecutive NBA championships between the years 2000 and the year 2000 and 2002. Salute to Shaquille O'Neal. Born on March 6th. Let's see who else we got from March 6th, which fell on a Monday here in 2023. Connie Britton, born March 6th, 1967 in Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, Lou Costello, born March 6th, 1906. He passed away on March 3rd, 1959. He was born in Paterson, New Jersey. And, of course, he's best known for his comedy routine, Who's on First, which he performed alongside his partner, Bud Abbott. During the Second World War, we talked about how James Doohan, Scotty, was a World War II hero, so kind of coming full circle with that. But during World War II, the comedy duo of Lou Costello and Bud Abbott were the highest paid and most popular entertainers in the world. In 2009, Lou Costello was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. Happy birthday in heaven to Ed McMahon. Born March 6th, 1923. This is his 100th birthday. Wow, I got to do a post on that in the Nostalgic Pod Blast. Born in Detroit, Michigan. He passed away, sadly, on June 23rd, 2009. That's the same week as Michael Jackson and Farrah Fawcett passing away. They died on June 25th, 2009, if memory serves correctly.
Let me know how much. Houston, let's get it on.
Yeah! Get it on, bang along!
Houston, let me hear what you're made of. Thank you for a memorable evening, Lucian. Good night. We've all lost a few pounds tonight. Thank you.
You are listening to the
Yes,
Power Station
yes.
Radio Conference live from New York City. My name is Scott Chadden. Some friends with us here today. Hello, John.
Hello there.
Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Palmer.
Good afternoon.
And Tony.
Hi.
We just heard a cut called Banga Gone from the album. A lot of people were very surprised about the whole project at Power Station. And now another surprise. For some time, you've announced that there's going to be no tour. The Saturday Night Live appearance was going to be it. And now all of a sudden,
lying.
we are gathered together here to announce a very, very big major summer tour. Now, usually that's not a problem with a band that's been together for a while and tours a lot, but each and every one of you guys have careers of your own. Robert, you have an album coming out. Tony's an incredible session player, and you guys have a band you're in called Duran Duran. How in the world did you, coordinate the entire summer tour?
Well, we've been very lucky, actually, because the whole album only happened because we all had the time free at the same time. And it snowballed. The whole thing became a bit of a monster, and it's been very successful for us. And it seems as though we've got nothing else to do this summer, so we all decided to go out on holiday.
Did you have to lose any money on sessions, Tony?
Yeah, a bit.
He's really...
I'm looking forward to this.
This is compensation, having a good time.
Yeah.
Andy, do you think that there's something about Power Station that gives you and perhaps John more musical credibility than you have in Duran Duran?
Incredibility, that is.
Yeah, only because these guys are on.
Do you get a chance to do something that you can't do in Duran Duran? And if so, what is it?
Well, it's a different sort of approach to the music. We had a very sort of, let's say, light approach to how we did it. We just did it sort of as it came, whereas Duran we spend a lot longer, and it's a different way of writing. So there's not more of something. It's just a totally different approach.
Although you are allowed to play guitar solos in this band.
Yeah, I am the guitar solo of this band.
And right now we're going to do another track from the album. It's called Communication. Robert, why don't you set this up for us?
Yeah, this is the first tune that I got to hear from this unit. I got a cassette sent, and as soon as I heard it, I booked a flight out, made up some words on the plane, got into the studio, and we were away. This is Communication. This is the first tune we finished, and this will be out soon.
Shadow here with Lisa Robinson and Scott Shannon. And Robert, when the whole project was first announced of Power Station, it looked on paper like probably wasn't, people couldn't understand how it was going to work. All your divergent musical styles, it was sort of a strange marriage from all of your backgrounds. And you're also quoted as saying that it may be like getting away with murder if it comes off. What did you mean by that?
Well, if you put it on paper, it still looks strange. But
it sounds good.
By Getting Away with Murder, it's one of those things where, much as you might be attracted by the potential of the idea, actually when you get there and do it, all you're relying on is the personalities gelling and the chemistry and things like that. I mean, really, when you make it a record, that's what you're recording, not especially notes. And the fact that it worked so well, we did get away with Murder, in that we were satisfied with what we'd done before it was even released.
Yeah.
I'm Lisa Robinson. John, you've been quoted as saying that you think it sounds terribly arrogant, but you think Power Station is the perfect group, and it's perfect rock music.
Did I say that?
Well,
John,
arrogant. Did I say that?
No, not
do you think it's the perfect?
No way.
Do you think it's the perfect rock group?
No, well, it could be, I guess, but I mean.
What about this works for you musically?
Yeah, I mean,
what
it
did
does.
it combine?
I don't know. I mean, it was just the idea that. The credentials of the band, I guess, would lead one to think it had everything. But as Robert said, if we weren't friends, it would have never worked. And, it's like you can put a supergroup together, people coming from different backgrounds and different musical things that theoretically can work well. But, I mean, really the only reason the thing happened was because we were all friends. And, we're going to be even better friends after the next tour. After this tour. After the next 3 months.
Yeah, until Robert Plant torpedoes the whole thing by quitting. I know the clip is a little long, but I think it's important. That's from the Westwood One radio special. I have this. I recorded it back in 1985 in pristine quality. That's not the source of this interview, but I have the exact same thing on cassette that I need to convert digitally. If you're still watching on camera, there's a Fantastic Four edition on screen with a former president, Richard Nixon, on the cover. That's what I like about Marvel Comics, is they had real cities, real people. Unlike the competitor that would have fictional cities. Gotham City, Metropolis. No, it's New York City. It's Richard Milhouse Nixon. I am not a crook. I'm not a crook. That's an exaggeration, but Richard Nixon's right there on the cover of the Fantastic Four with the Silver Surfer. I only wanted to show covers that had the Silver Surfer, prominent covers, tonight in this edition of the Nostalgic Pod Blast. We've gone over 3 hours, only got about 5 more minutes left in this edition, and I want to devote that to playing the very end of this interview. There's more, but I just think it's important to document the Power Station as an incredibly underrated and short-lived rock band. Let's continue listening.
Don't think.
Andy, you've just announced plans for the Get It On tour with Power Station all across this great country of ours for the summer of 1985. You like the way I said it?
Yeah, very much.
Can you tell me some of the acts that are going to be with you?
Well, we have some English acts, actually, who most people in America will have heard of. Spandau Ballet are doing some of the shows with us. And a new English band called Go West are doing some of the shows.
I like Go West.
And Paul Young.
We Close Our Eyes. That was one of their hit songs. Go West. I have their albums and their dance tracks on vinyl. Turtles records and tapes. I was there all the time buying records.
We'll be doing something with us which hopefully will be in Toronto. And that'll be a bigger show where there should be more than all the acts together will be playing, hopefully. And other surprises, anything could happen. I mean, we only decided to do this last night, so. Here from, where we were, this chicken place was supposed to be at.
Popeyes.
Popeyes. Here from Popeyes Chicken in Times Square.
This is Lisa
That's
Robinson.
where Andy hangs out.
This is Lisa Robinson again. Tony, you've played with so many people. You were in Chic, you've been on the road with Bowie. Do you feel that you're more in a band this time? You have more exposure. People will be more aware of you.
Yeah,
and your
I've just been, everyone's familiar with my stuff and my work, but not my face, and
Maybe
so
we should keep it that way.
Is it more satisfying for you?
Yeah, it's more satisfying being part of a group, especially when I'm friends with everybody here, and it's like family. And to create music like that and then go on the road, it's just like it's the ultimate thing for me. And I haven't been on the road for a while, and it's like the Bowie was the last time.
When you do the tour this summer, I know it's a last-minute thing, but have you thought about any of the music you're going to be?
We certainly have. Yes. We've got a list a mile long. I mean, apart from the Power Station material, we can draw from anywhere, essentially. So what we're looking at, that's one of the things about the album that we've been saying is how it came together, and we were able to do it without any rules. We're going to be able to put a show together the same way, just to pick tunes out the blue that are going to have the optimum effect at the right spot for the show.
Give us a couple titles.
Well, how about Some Like It Hot? Or what else to the world?
I don't know. It's we can really play anything, and apart from our respective catalogues.
I'm looking forward to singing the Reflex.
And I'm looking forward to singing
Are you
Johnny
gonna?
Mary.
Are you gonna do? You know if you're gonna do any Duran songs on the tour?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
definitely. The Reflex, we're up for that, and maybe Save a Prayer. I think I can handle that one.
Robert, I want to ask you something that's kind of
Guy's
unusual.
hair black and get it all cut off first. Well, if anyone's got any songs, just send them to Z100, you know.
Like Popeye's chicken.
Right.
The mothership.
Anybody's got any great ideas, we'll play them.
Robert Palmer has been known for a long time, and you've had so many albums out, and there's such great albums, but you've always had this kind of a cult following. And is this a weird experience for you, all of a sudden, to be in a rock and roll band that, you know, young girls and people like, and all of a sudden you're like in the top 5, and you're in a place where you've never been before? Is it unusual? How does it feel?
Nice. It's a bigger cult.
Same type of cult, just more people, right?
Well, the thing is that it offers a lot of opportunities. You know, like as I say, that the whole album, even though we've all got things going on, half the time that can be a pressure and can stop you doing things. So that we made this album to escape that, and the tour can be the same thing. We can just do what we'd like to do if we went and saw a show. What we'd like to hear, what we'd like, and make it up from that point of view, rather than having to deliver a certain thing. And in the meantime, we're going to play nothing but accessible numbers.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, cabaret for the 80s.
I think what he means is we're going to make it up as we go along.
Yeah. We're just going to take requests.
John, there's a rumor that you're going to be recording some of these live shows this summer and putting together a live radio special or
Yeah, it
something?
certainly wouldn't be out of the question. Well, no, it's not out of the question. I think it'd be nice to do that. We're going to be taping a couple of shows across the country. Hopefully, we'll be releasing some kind of a show right at the end of the tour.
Great. And then I mentioned there might be a special show coming in July. Can we talk about this?
Yes, it's 13th Shea Stadium is an idea that Bob Geldof put to us 2 weeks ago. He came over. He was trying to put together a concert for Ethiopia. It's basically going to be a 24-hour moving jukebox. There's a simultaneous concert happening at London Wembley Stadium and hopefully Shea here. If it happens, we're going to be doing it. That's July the 13th.
This will be for World Satellite TV.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've just put the date down, and if it happens, we'll be there.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tony,
Thank you.
good to see you. And Robert, good luck to you.
I'd like to thank our 3 hosts.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Shadow, Lisa, Scott, thank you.
The Power Station Get It On Tour 1985, all across America.
That's it. That's a good piece of music history. And I think it's important. Great band, great radio right there. Now, people were writing in, what are you drinking? Well, I'm drinking coffee that I made with Evian water with half and half and a little dash of sugar, and it's delicious. Another thing that's nostalgic that I know a lot of you out there still do, as I do as well, is play board games. And lately, every other week, I've been playing Scrabble. I have always excelled at writing and word games, and I love watching Password, those classic game shows that deal with words. Wheel of Fortune to an extent. Of course, that deals with words. But I've always loved playing Scrabble, and I love board games. It's great that they're still around. Want to play another quick clip of some music, and then I'm going to finally sign off. We've gone almost 3.5 hours in the Nostalgic Pod Blast. I want to thank everyone that was out there live. I see your nice likes and things. I think I've read everybody's name. I'll go through the list as I play this clip and thank everybody. But look, here is a theme to a classic Quinn Martin Productions television show. It's pretty funky. Let's listen. Streets of San Francisco, of course, starring Michael Douglas and Carl Malden. Carl Malden. He had that big, unsightly cauliflower nose. He was in those ads for American Express traveler's checks. Never leave home without them. Don't leave home without them. But let's see if there's any other clips. Oh, I was going to mention this. Now, at the very top of the show lately, you may have noticed I've included this logo to kick off the show. And that's the ITC Entertainment logo. And typically, if you're a Gen Xer like me, when I was about 6 years old, that would signal to me that either The Muppet Show or Space 1999 was about to start airing on my television set. And with Disney Plus, of course, that logo, since ownership has changed hands throughout the years, it's no longer an ITC property. You don't have that logo, and it's kind of sad, and I get the reason behind it, but I always miss that logo. Same with the Space 1999 reruns. I don't know why I'm sounding like Howard Cosell, but the Space 1999 reruns on Blu-ray, ITC still has their logo, but they've redesigned it. And I wish they'd play, in that case, they could play the classic logo just for the retro feel. But on Tubi TV, Tubi TV, they had a cool Super Bowl ad with a rabbit hole, by the way. They kind of copied the She-Hulk season 1 finale where they break the fourth wall where you're actually seeing the screen. But I love Tubi TV, and they have Space 1999, but they don't have them in production order. By the way, got to give a quick plug as we sign off for the Nostalgic Podblast eBay store. Actually, it's not a store. It's auctions. I have a lot of film items I'm liquidating. I have a Star Trek up right now, an episode, a great print of an episode titled This Side of Paradise, where Spock's infected with the space spores, which are recycled props from the Outer Limits episode titled Specimen Unknown from season 1 of the Outer Limits. And that's where Spock and Kirk and the whole crew get high from these space spores that make you feel love. It's like Molly in the form of a plant. Not that I know what Molly feels like. It's just what I've read. But anyway, so I have that one up. And anytime someone wins a film, if they're a first-time buyer, you get Fistful of Radio sticker. And you get a Nostalgic Podblast Show sticker for what it's worth for your automobile or notebook or just throw it away. Hopefully you'll do something positive with it. Maybe put it on your refrigerator or something like that. But that's what they look like. So you get 2. And very grateful for you helping me find a nice new home for some of these films. I just felt like it was time to let some of them go. And I hope you have a great, great week. Is there anything else I wanted to say? I guess not. I guess I'll sign off. I just can't stop, folks, especially when I'm on this good coffee. Oh, I didn't say what the coffee was. I talked about it being made with Evian water and a dash of sugar and half, but it's Folgers dark roast. And I use an old school coffee pot, not a Keurig. But talking about logos, that I was going to play this quick clip. Someone commented and said when I shared a clip of that ITC logo video of it, and someone commented and said, well, I like this logo better. Listen.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Remember that?
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
With the Paramount logo at the end. Well, that was a tail end. Nothing wrong with his preferred logo. And then, of course, you had the Jack Webb one. I played that before. I won't bore you with it now. With the sickle. And that was a sound effect that Universal reused in the $6 Million Man. You know, that hammer. That was for the Jack Webb shows. And I loved Project UFO. I wish I could find that show somewhere. That was a cool late 70s, short-lived 2-season show from Real Files from the FBI about unidentified flying objects. I know the U.S. Air Force. It was the United States Air Force. I sit corrected. Thank goodness I caught that before I had to issue another correction corner. Well, thanks again for listening and watching, and I hope you have a great, great week. Good night. Thanks to the power station.